Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everybody to Culture and Sport for the 25th of September. Welcome to our visitors in the gallery this morning. I'll just run through a bit of housekeeping before we get formally underway. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. The health and safety procedures for this building are displayed on the screen, so if you're not familiar with this building, and I think most of us are, but please take time to have a look through those and familiarise yourself with them. As we go into the session, because we're live streaming and being recorded, I'll ask people to, presenters particularly, to give your names as you introduce yourselves to the room so that people online can see who it is. Okay, I will open with karakia. Tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I roto, tū taua mai I waho, kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora, ki te katoa, homie, huie, tai kie. Kia ora. Our first item of business is to receive any apologies.
Yes, early departure, possible early departure.
Councillor Finlay for early departure, and the Mayor who is absent on council business. Anything else to add? I will move those, seconded by the Deputy Chair, Councillor Meehan, and to vote to receive those apologies. It's carried, 12 votes in favour. Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is notification of additional items, which I believe there aren't any. And item 4, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? Anyone? They're all good. And 5 is public comment. I'm not aware of any public comment this morning. We do have presentations, but not public comment. Excellent. Moving rapidly through what is quite a long agenda, so that's a good start. Item 6 is a presentation from Volleyball Manawatu. We have Kelsey Higgins here with us. Good morning, Kelsey. Lovely to see you. Kelsey's the General Manager of Volleyball Manawatu. Now, Kelsey, I know you're no stranger to the presenting chair, but just make sure you've pressed the right-hand button so the red light comes on. Or the left-hand button. A button. There we go. Oh. And you've got, Councillor Barrett is going to assist. Well, plugged in. There we go. And you've got the hand controller thing for the presentation there. Okay, Kelsey, we have 10 minutes for your presentation, so over to you. Thank you for coming in today.
Good morning. Thank you guys for having me back again. I'll keep it pretty short this time. So I presented last year around the same 2 events for us, Secondary School Nationals being the hosting party for that event being retained here in Palmerston North, and then as well as a beach volleyball court development project at Takaro Sports Club.
Oh, you've got to switch it on. Sorry, I should have said that. That's on me. So it's on the side, just push that up and then that should, there we go.
I'm in sport, not tech. So just real brief, we are the regional association represented by Volleyball New Zealand here. We've only been an association for 4 years, and so with that, we're trying to grow some of our business practices and establish our leagues and programs with rapid growing numbers. Our vision here is to be able to deliver that to every age and stage of play, and I think Secondary School Nationals is a huge platform for us. It not only benefits our local high school teams because we get more teams to represent at the event, but we are also able to leverage that for our younger players or adults to be able to come down and see the event. It's going to be super small writing, so that is our list of programs from this upcoming year. Last year, we saw over 6,500 participants in our region, and that's excluding numbers of secondary school nationals. So if we include those, we'd see another over 2,000 participants here playing volleyball in the region. As a regional association, this is just a bit of where we currently sit. We have huge participation numbers, and those reflect higher participants in the female sport demographic, which is huge for us, and really high diversity rates. And then obviously having Central Energy Trust Arena here makes most of those leagues possible. For us, there's some weaknesses there because we haven't been established as long. We don't have any other direct venues that we can utilize. Obviously, for a lot of participants, being able to just go out and casually play a sport like a basketball hoop in a park isn't something that our community has access to. Also recognizing the association only being 4 years in and having that large amount of participants is something that we're constantly working towards bringing more sustainability behind the programs. Some massive opportunities there with secondary school nationals and the addition of Arena 5, as well as a better partnership now with Volleyball New Zealand. Some threats there. No one really likes change, and so for a sport that has been largely run just by volunteers trying to bring some stuff under some governance structures, there's a little bit of pushback, and with that comes some cost increase along with everything else. So we always try and manage that risk of keeping our participation numbers up while bringing on the business structure behind it. The full insight report to 2024's Secondary School Nationals is there attached. That's on a public link for anyone to access the full document. But some really fantastic things. We were able to host 198 teams. So that is the largest secondary school sporting event in the country. And with that, there's really good numbers behind female participation again and diversity. And we also this year were able to upskill some local leadership. I played a big role behind the scenes in bringing the pre-event plan here, but as well as being the assistant tournament director, we had 2 of our local university students come and work at the event that are now part of Volleyball 102 staff. So that was really cool to be able to see that transition into more local capabilities for us. A huge part of this event is obviously the funding behind it. And so being able to leverage that into what we can do in the next 3 years, that amount of teams was able to increase the spending here by $700,000, which is not just the increase of teams because it was actually relatively low increase, but there was a lot of work done with city council around trying to activate some other activities for them in the community. And we really saw those teams be able to get out in town more by adjusting how we managed the draw of the event. And we had a lot of good feedback around those changes, just meant that the kids could come into town and do some things other than volleyball. I'm happy to say that the next 3-year cycle of the program will be retained here in Palmerston North. So thank you both to this committee, as well as Sport 102. I know that was, there was a lot of work behind the scenes to retain that event. I think that what we can do during those 3 years is really see how we manage the event longer term here. It'll never change that other regions want to host it. It obviously has a huge benefit to the volleyball regions, but as well as that economic impact. So those are just a bit of the points that with Volleyball New Zealand, we know wherever the event goes that are really key points to hosting something this large that we can leverage within the city to make sure that we're not utilizing all the resources, but also creating more benefit, not just to the tournament, but to wherever it's hosted as well. Just a little bit about the event being here. So that meant that more of our local schools could participate in the event with 16 teams there. Potentially only 1 or 2 would travel if it was away, just due to cost. That also has to do with hosting 198 teams. It meant some of our not elite performance high school programs still get to play in an event of that size. And it's something that our surrounding regions really, they say they enjoy. Our part of Central Zone, which would be Hawke's Bay, Taranaki, and Wellington. For Taranaki and Hawke's Bay, they just don't have the big events like Wellington would be able to see more frequently. So for them to be able to come here and experience something of that size, it's just something that longer term we can benefit more events as part of a collaborative model. That event has also trickled down to more participation in some of our youth programs. So last year, our junior series, we struggled to get 8 school teams into it, and this year we had to cap it out at 16 just due to the space in the arena that we had. We know that that is a lot of new schools for us, so our senior league that was capped out last year, we've had to look at expanding, and that will likely see also another increase of 8 to 10 school teams that are now going to try and qualify into the school national event. Our beach court project, from the time I submitted this, a little bit has changed. So we do have 70% of the project funded right now. The intention of that was to create an open space for the community to come down and use. In meeting with our community members that aren't necessarily volleyball players, access to equipment was equally a challenge as somewhere to go play. When you're playing beach volleyball, it's much like tennis. You don't want to go down with one ball because you're just going to be most of your time chasing it down the sand. And so we're looking at a model where we could have them be able to check out equipment. That portion of the project of the equipment we haven't yet funded, and so we're going to continue to work on that. And in the meantime, the club who had originally started the project there is going to retain ownership. And so for this year, there will be some beach volleyball happening there through that club, and our hope is that over the next year we could finalize that funding agreement and move it into a wider community resource. That is it for me today.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Kelsey, for whizzing us through all of that huge amount of activity. I will open for questions. I did have a couple. You talked about the opportunity in your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats slide. You talked about the opportunity of Arena 5. Can you say more about that for me?
So with the RSL framework that came out, we know that Arena 5, the decision on that right now is around the Bells Hall side of the complex when it does need to come down, but it does mean over the next few years, it will be a multi-use venue. And so up until that time, that Bells Hall does need to be decommissioned. We will be able to potentially not just host a larger school national tournament, potentially, or move the venue or move out of utilizing Massey. It is a bit of, I guess, a difficulty of teams not getting to be hosted at the main venue, but as well as the struggle for our indoor sporting codes. We are maxed out in that time frame of after school till about 10 o'clock at night. And so for volleyball, it'll likely be an additional 4-court venue. And for us, that just means that we'll be able to offer more programs kind of to the wider social community and not only focus on our competitive programs.
Okay, thank you, Kelsey. Councillor Barrett had a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Kelsey, for coming in and sharing the great progress that you're making through the volleyball world. Just a couple questions. One was on your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats slide. If I saw it right in the threats one, there is one there around loss of interest. I think it said loss of interest due to access, and I just wondered if you could, did I get that right, and could you unpack that a bit for us?
Yeah, so that kind of ties into our hope for the beach volleyball courts. We right now have one court in the community that is just out at a park. And in comparison to our participation numbers, we're around the same as basketball or netball, and the access to just being able to go out and shoot hoops at a park isn't there for our community. With that, it's hard to generate players staying in the game as well as that social side. So we have more numbers than we can maintain right now participating in leagues, but some of that active play and recreation space, we just can't really utilize anything or provide that to our community, because when we do go do engagement, there's nowhere for them to then go play the game if that's what they'd like to do. So we very often are approached by community organizations or church groups about running something. We're happy to go run it, but after that, there's not really anywhere for them to go. So the arena is quite expensive for a small group to be able to access, as well as availability is a challenge.
Cool, thanks. Have you thought about what solutions to that might look like and whether council might have a role in those solutions that you'd like to see happen?
For us, it was right now the facility at Taco Rose Sports Club. They have been very generous with us. It was an underutilized space at the time. We have the opportunity to build 6 sand volleyball courts there, and the hope would be that those become public access, same as a basketball hoop and a park would be. It also means that we can run more community activity there because our annual membership to them is quite low. It's something that we can afford to do and not charge addition to that. Right now, that project was started by a club, so it wasn't something that was ever part of a long-term facility plan. And with the arrangement of Taco Rose Sports Club being a city council-owned property, but the club itself then needing to self-fund, I guess for us, trying to seek that funding outside of council had been the plan. If there is opportunity for council to be able to either help or direct us towards potential other funding opportunities, right now the funding, we had received $30,000 from ECCT, which was the 3rd largest amount of money that they allocated to our region for this year. So we were really grateful for that. But unfortunately, it's a $100,000 project. So until we can kind of finalize that last $30,000, we're just going to have to keep that in park for a little bit.
Great, thank you. Second question and final one, Madam Chair. Just wanted to see if you had a comment or could update us a little bit around what you're seeing in terms of coaching capacity and capability within the sport.
It is definitely a challenge for us. So I have only been part of this volleyball community for 6 years. With no association preceding, there wasn't very many competitive programs. So the generation of coaches that aren't widely available, it is something that we're working more with Volleyball New Zealand around developing structures to engage with coaches. We also recognize that a huge part of our sport is very social. We don't require coaches at our secondary school social level, and that's around 70 teams that participate. But coaches for our competitive programs is something we struggle with. That is a bit of our model that we need to resolve in retention of those competitive athletes. We equally would like to see more of our kids being able to participate in the national programs, and until we can provide more sustainable resources to more schools around coaching, that is something that it's just going to take some time to build up those resources here. A little pitch, we do have a coaching course over the school holidays, so Volleyball New Zealand has helped, and they're going to come down and help run that for our juniors, being that our junior program has doubled in size in the last year.
Cool, great, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Kelsey, I wanted to ask, when you talked about the secondary school nationals, you said you've had some success this year and how you structured that to get people to come into town. What kind of things are they doing when they come into town?
I think we have to look at it from 2 sides. So there's over 3,000 high school kids with their coaches here. Out of the day of volleyball, they're actually only on the court for maybe 3 hours out of the day, each of the 5 days that they're here. So during that time, they're very often going to the plaza. A lot of our rural schools get very excited about being able to do some shopping. And then as well as just some of our general like active lifestyle type things. The trampoline park, the Lido gets utilized quite often. Weather dependent on how much they can actually be able to use any of our beautiful parks and walkways. And then we see the other 1,000 people coming into town that are parents who definitely have time outside of those 3 hours a day because they are not wanting to sit in the gym. And I think that is actually something that we really need to look at, how we provide not necessarily activities, but how we engage them to go out into town, whether it's dining experiences or something going on in the theater that week, because our parents do become I guess, a little bit anxious. Most of the kids enjoy being in the gym outside of just their time on court, but parents are quite keen to watch their kid play and then potentially take a younger sibling off to go do something else with their time that they're here.
Okay. I imagine all of that activity turns up in the economic impact data that you were sharing.
Yes, so this year, especially with our work with council around those other activities, we included that data in that report.
That's great. Thank you, Kelsey. No more questions, so you can take a seat back in the gallery. Thank you for coming in again. Feels like not long since you were here last time, so great to keep us up to date with what's going on for volleyball. I'll move that the Culture and Sport Committee receive the presentation for information, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Open that for any comments. It's really great to see the success of volleyball at a local level, to see 4 years in, you're really getting some cut through there. And then to have the National Secondary Schools Championships here is just, it's immense. So I think you said it's the biggest national school teams competition. That's incredible and such value to our community. So I was really pleased to hear that. One thing I'd probably like us to follow up, and I'll have a conversation maybe with you, Kelsey, is about how we support that connection between the national competition going on here and the opportunities in the community. I think you obviously connect with many of our city organisations. I saw CEDA and the Chamber of Commerce on your list. I do think there's probably an opportunity for the Business Improvement District to be involved there in terms of connecting people with the opportunities, connecting our businesses with the opportunities that having a big competition like that in town provides. But congratulations, that's really impressive. Councillor Harpiter.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I also wanted to say congratulations to Kelsey for hosting such a fantastic tournament to the city. 198 teams is fantastic, and well done to you and to your organising committee for doing such a great thing for our city from an economic development point of view. It's fantastic, and the city congratulates you for doing such a great thing for our city. I just wanted to say exactly what you've said, Madam Chair. I just think it's marvellous, and also connecting with those agencies is a great thing, and also with the bid would be good going forward. So if you need any help with that, just let us know. Otherwise, talk to Keegan. He'd be the one to help you with through the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harpiter. Deputy Mayor.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair, o te rā, tēnā tātou katoa. Kelsey, I had the privilege of going along there for the opening and the closing as well as in between, and it was very impressive. And I too want to give a bouquet to you and the organisation for all that happened. Really good to see that Volleyball New Zealand is hosting a holiday coaching course. I think that's really educative. Also, the other thing is, given that growing interest, not only amongst students, young people, but also those who are supporting them to build that capacity or provide that zone of development, I think that that's an important concept, and well done. It was really fantastic. So ngā mihi. Tēnā koutou. Oh, the other thing I wanted to add was, it was in talking with a few of the teams, they said one of the other bonuses, other than the venue and the organisation, was the ability for Palmerston North and locally to actually accommodate those teams over a different variety. So some went to marae, some went to motels and hotels, some went to hostel areas, and that was good to hear as well. Nō reira, tēnā koe, Kelsey. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Faida. Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just a bit of an echo, but Kelsey, well done. I got down there and spent a little bit of time down at the competition as well, and was absolutely impressed by the numbers. It was chock-a-block. That's spectators and players. And the impressive part for me was to see so many engaged, and nobody looked like they weren't having a good time. Everybody looked like they were having a good time. So well done. Your passion's felt. and how well you succeeded in a short time. Brilliantly, onwards and upwards. Thank you.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. I think another thing I'd made when you were talking, Kelsey, is the comment about hosting it here, not just wonderful for our city, wonderful for the economic impact, but means 16 local teams get to participate, whereas if it was anywhere else, we'd be down to just a couple. So that's a real value to our local community of being able to host national scale events here, and we really do appreciate all of the time and effort that it takes to do that. So thank you to you and the wider volleyball community for what you bring to the city. I will ask people to vote now that we receive that presentation for information. Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move to our next presentation on the agenda, item 7, which is Centrepoint Theatre. So I will invite our presenters to come down. We have Murray Georgell, who is from the Building Committee and ex-board chair at Centrepoint, Martin Carr, who's the business manager, and Kate Louise Elliott, the general manager and artistic director of Centrepoint. So find yourselves a seat. We'll do something to make the microphone come on. You need a red light in front of you. Excellent. Murray's onto this, no stranger. I will hand over to you. You have 10 minutes and then we'll open for questions.
Thank you, and good morning, Madam Chair, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, you've already, Madam Chair's already introduced us in a way, but some of the things that you may not know about us. So Kate Louise Elliott, professional author, comedian, actor, dramatist, singer, does everything. This is her third stay at Centrepoint, having been here as an actor from 98 to 2000, returning as artistic director between 2008 and 2012, and has been the general manager there since 2017. And on my left, Martin Carr, who's a trustee for the last 22 years of the Centrepoint, Theatre. He's also, you may not know, he was trustee for the Regent Theatre for 15 years, so a clear demonstration of his involvement in the arts and his passion for them in Palmerston North. Martin has been the business manager since 2017, and these two have built a fantastic reputation and company as we know them. So our intentions today are really to tell you a bit about what we do, because not all of it is readily known to you. Some of it is. Some of it may have gone under the radar. Kate's going to do that. Then we'll give a brief description of a bit about a history, but more about our ambitions and what we need to do to improve our lot. And then Martin will do that. And then I was just going to summarise at the end. If that's okay, Madam Chair, we'll get underway with that.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Yes, I'm sure you are all aware that Centrepoint Theatre is the last remaining professional production house in regional New Zealand. But putting shows on stage isn't the only thing we do. That worked. So we run an improv we run a lot of courses. Our community outreach programs are actually the largest of any of the professional theatres in the country. And 99% of our offerings are free to our community. So we run an Improv for Everybody program in 2 of our high schools here that teach theatre skills to people living with disabilities. We have a high school theatre sports program that involved 6 high schools this year, and more from other regions are signing on for next year. The hope for us is to have a national theatre sports competition in the next 2 years, and we'll hold it here, obviously. Wellington schools are already joining in with us next year. We have an online script writing course that's free for anybody over the country, but we do ensure that 25% of our applicants are from Palmerston North. This is where people are paired with a mentor, a professional playwright over 8 weeks, and they come up with a piece of writing at the end of that 8 weeks. And then after that, that piece of writing leads us into our Sunday script sessions, which involves taking these new scripts developed in the course. We audition community actors who then get to work for a day with a professional director to produce a rehearsed reading at the end of that day. This is a really low commitment but high impact program that we have. We have adult improv classes that are 2 terms over the year. That's probably the only one, in fact, that is the only one that people pay for. Our basement series workshops, we had a youth theatre company which started in 2005. Now it's open to a whole lot of students, and they can come, they don't have to be involved in the program for the whole year. They can come to each workshop. We have 10 workshops a year. These are also free for 14 to 17-year-olds, and these include props making with designers from Weta Workshop. We have special effects makeup with Weta designers. They all come to the theatre and run these programs from Centrepoint. We have puppet making, circus skills, voiceover for film and TV classes, a workshop, acting and auditioning for camera with 2 of the top casting agents from New Zealand, and these are just to name a few. And if you can just maybe imagine that one day one of those casting agents says, hey, remember that kid we saw in Palmy? The next Hobbit. We have a Pacifica Fun program, which is a course designed to teach theatre skills to Pacifica students, just to enable them to have some confidence to be able to tell their stories and the skills to be able to do those. And new in 2025 is our Attic program, which has been requested by seniors of our community. So we've got the basement, which is our youth, and we've got the Attic, who also want to learn skills so that their stories can be heard. When I say that we offer the most in our outreach than any of our theatre siblings in Auckland or Christchurch and Wellington, in the first 6 months of this year, we had or were involved in 93 outreach programs, which totaled nearly 17,500 attendees at these events. Our numbers for last year, now remember this is just post-COVID, are we allowed to say that word anymore? Our main stage, if you can see there, just over 9,000 attendees, but our community engagement was just over 30,000. It's a lot of what we actually do at the theatre. That's really difficult to see, so I'll explain it a little better. We aim to have 1,000 new patrons a year. Now, we can only accurately record the one person who makes the booking if they accurately give us their accurate information. And we can say that in the last year, we had 700 new patrons sign up. We can assume that they all made a booking for maybe more than just themselves. And we can report that they recorded as saying that they came from Australia down to Wellington. That's just the new patrons, okay? Of the 13,000, that's even better to figure out. Of the 13,000 people that we have recorded in our patron base system, taking out Palmerston North, our reach has been from Auckland to Southland, with the largest numbers coming from Wellington and Gisborne and Taranaki. We can make some assumptions that the people travelling from those regions would possibly purchase food and drink, maybe accommodation as part of their visit to Centrepoint, and perhaps a cafe outing the following day. And we can, again, probably safely assume that of those 13,000 people, they're not coming just by themselves. I'm going to take you backstage now, which is a little more interesting. So this might actually look like a playground for a rat, but in actual fact, it's our state-of-the-art, state of performing arts, leak catching system. Now, yeah, don't panic, those lights that you can see on the poles there, they're not plugged in. In fact, we don't really use a lot of those lights anymore because we are trying to follow the Aotearoa Green Theatre Plan that's been developed. So we're hoping to, well, we're mainly already there at only using 100% LED lights. In fact, of this Green Theatre Plan, we're already covering very comfortably 5 of the 7 points. So this is our dressing room. This is actually the flash one. If you can see, just note that shower. Can you see the shower? You can? So this is the other side of the next dressing room. Oh, look, same shower. So our two dressing rooms that we put our flash people in is separated by a shower. This is our rehearsal room. That's pretty much the only natural light that's coming in the back part of the building. This is where we hold all of our rehearsals, obviously, and our workshops and our professional development classes for high school teachers around the area. This is our workshop. Nothing wrong with that, other than potentially the roof. And the fact that that's the only access into the rehearsal and dressing rooms from the outside. Okay, I haven't mentioned our office spaces or office lack of spaces. We are adaptable as artists, but we can't expand as a team and offer any more projects that we want to into the community until we can actually house us and have a place for us to be able to grow. So I'll hand over now to Martin Carr, our business manager, who will explain how we're going to get this.
Thank you, Kate. We are running a little bit towards the end of your 10 minutes of presentation, so let me just ask you, Martin, would you be able to tell us about your building project?
I certainly can. As Kay's mentioned, there's a number of issues with the building we're in at the moment, and we're needing to address those reasonably urgently. I have written on a big long presentation, but if I don't have enough time, I'd quickly say that
you have some time.
We have some time. Well, tell me if you want me to speed up at some stage. We've taken a conservative approach to this. We did a feasibility study back in 2022 about actually building a new theatre. We decided conservatively amongst ourselves that we're better off to do improvements to our existing one because the cost of building a totally new one was going to be prohibitive. We wanted to address the main problems we've got with the building. The public toilets, there's just not enough of them. The public foyer area is not big enough to accommodate everybody when the theatre's full. The actors' dressing rooms and the shower, as you saw, are prehistoric, and we're regularly getting some international quality practitioners coming and working with us and working in those terrible conditions. The roof leaks like a sieve. You've seen the things there. I think the last time we had a big flood, we took out 18 buckets full of water. It's a very old roof and it's had a lot of problems it needs replacing. And then the ugly issue of earthquake strengthening has come up too since we started this process. So we've made a plan that's just going to address those issues. We've had it costed with just on estimates at this stage, early estimates based on some builder estimates and engineering reports. And the cost of this whole operation, this whole project, is going to be approximately $5.1 million. Now, that's obviously a considerable amount of money, but we've got a plan in place. And in terms of timescale, our plan is that next year, 2025, we will be concentrating on fundraising. 2026, we'll be doing the building, and 2027 as well, when we'll be inviting the city back in there. It's not a flash new theatre, and it's a conservative and realistic approach. We've cut our cloths wherever we can to make something achievable for everyone. Over the last few months, we've engaged the services of a professional fundraising consultant, and they have, along with our own fundraising committee, formulated a plan to raise this money. Our starting point is the Trust's own funds. We have, over the last 5 years, through some pretty careful fiscal management by Kate and myself, put aside $650,000 that we have assigned to this project. So we've got really 12% of the total project cost already. This leaves us the remaining 88%, which we're planning to raise through trust grants, government assistance, local body input, sponsors, and general community donations. We've actually made some good progress with our first couple of approaches we've done about that. We're very, very excited to say that the Central Energy Trust has given us initial indication that they're prepared to support us to the tune of up to $1 million. So that's a big chunk already. And we have begun discussions already with the DIA's Lotteries Community Facilities Fund. We've met with them face to face, and they are suggesting that we should be applying to them for somewhere in the vicinity of $700,000 to $800,000. And that application will be made in their January round, which is when they've next invited us to go in. All we're waiting on for that is to get some firmer ideas of the total cost. The 5.1, as I said, is an estimate. We've got quantity surveyors working on it at the moment, and so by the time we come to put that application in, we should have a realistic cost. One of the things that the DIA wanted to see was that we had raised already at least 30% of the cost of the project, and of course with the CET commitment and our own funds, we're actually well past that, so we've sort of ticked one of the DIA's first boxes there. That would leave us approximately $2.5 million still to raise, but we've identified obviously a number of trusts, other organisations, sponsors, and fundraising campaigns that we're going to do, and we're quietly confident we'll be able to do that. A lot of the trusts that we're going to be applying to are trusts we have dealt with quite a lot over the last few years, and they've funded us for many of the 50 years we've been operating. The initial stages are all well underway. Just yesterday we had some geotech people in there drilling huge holes in our car park and scaring the billy-o out of our pet rabbit that lives in the garden there. To date, we've spent over $55,000 on various design costs, engineering reports, fees and consents. And in June, just in time for our 50th birthday celebration, our resource consent was granted for the project. So we're well underway. So while we're talking to you, we're seeking some financial assistance or input from the council to help us carry on as New Zealand's last remaining professional theatre outside the main centres, to help us expand and continue our outreach programs in the city and region, and to continue Centrepoint's legacy for another 50 years, all the while contributing to the social wellbeing, cultural wellbeing, and economic wellbeing of the city, particularly through the numerous out-of-town patrons that come to us. We know that having a local body involved in the funding of this is going to help us to convince a lot of the trusts to assist us, because that's one thing that they often and or sometimes always ask to see that there's evidence of it. And as we also will be looking at approaching other local bodies, and because as Kate Louise has mentioned, there's our outreach reaches out into far and wide around this region in terms of Tararua, Fielding, etc. So what are we looking for? We'd like to ask you to consider a financial commitment that could be allocated over 2 to 3 years, over 2 to 3 financial years as the project progresses, and it could also include assistance with fees, council fees and permits, etc. What we'd like to see is a contribution from the Palmerston North Council somewhere in the vicinity of $250,000. That would account for 5% of the overall project cost. We obviously would like more, but we understand the pressure on rates and the pressure on elected representatives like yourselves, so we think we're being realistic here. I'll keep it short now. I just want to thank you all very much for having us here today, and I hope you can get as excited about this as we have been. It's just over 50 years ago that a group of enthusiastic volunteers formed this trust, rented premises in George Street and grabbed some paintbrushes. Then in 1978 they purchased a disused railway workshop in Church Street with the backing of the city and the backing of the council, and Centrepoint as we know it was now born. And we're inviting you now to be part of the next 50 years of Centrepoint, telling our stories and touching lives in Palmerston North. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. That was a very inspiring close there. And there are some questions coming in. Can I just start? Can I ask, in your 3-year programme, would you have to close the theatre during the build? What would be the plan there?
We are thinking we will have to close it. We had initially thought we could work around it, and some of the builders had suggested that, but others have suggested not. So our intention would be we will be going out into the community in that time. We'll probably be looking at staging still putting our main stage on, but we'll be doing that perhaps in other venues around the town, or even in venues that aren't venues. And our outreach program, we can pick that up and move that anywhere, so that would carry on as well. So we very much think we will carry on the whole time. Yeah.
That's great, thank you. Question from Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to inquire around the comparison of building new. Can you recall the costs of exploratory around what that figure would have been?
Sure.
As a comparison?
You have to do that. Yeah. Yes, sure. Because our initial thoughts were, do we knock that building down, build a new one, or do we sell that building thinking that that site might be quite valuable in terms of the corner, and then buy another site, build one, or do we buy another building and convert it into a theatre? And we used Third Bearing at the time to do a feasibility study for us, which was funded by the DIA. And yeah, their estimates was for the totally building a new one was 8 to 10 million. And while we discussed this the other day, to me, that doesn't seem like a lot more than the 5 million that we're already talking to do our alterations, but it's a lot of money to raise, and we don't really want to be spending our next 5 years raising money when we should be doing outreach programs and putting on theatre.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Hancock.
Madam Chair, and thanks very much for the presentation. Just a couple of questions, just in terms of the capacity of what you're actually planning going forward, the same or is it improving? Any comments around planned expansion of the outreach programs that you're actually running? And finally, just to nail down the timeline for the project. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I'll just talk on the capacity. Well, that was part of when we did the feasibility study and also our initial discussions, because we had started on the premise it would be good to have a bigger theatre, and so we initially were looking how can we add another 100. We seat 135. We were thinking how can we make it 200, 250, and that did increase the cost by a huge amount. But we also decided or felt really that Centrepoint's success on the main stage over the years has been the intimacy of that room, and people just love it because it's a small, close black box theatre, meaning that you're all in one place and you've got all the lights and everything all around you. And the number of times when we actually fill it, it's a bit like, to me, I compare it to the stadium in Wellington, when you're only going to fill it 3 nights a year. Is it worth putting another 30,000 seats in? And we're a bit similar. We're not quite 30,000, but the number of nights per year that we fill, and we could sell those extra 100 seats, it would never justify the cost to have it bigger. So, Kate.
Thank you. We come up with new ideas for our outreach programs on a daily basis. And we want to do as much as we possibly can. People will come to us and say, hey, what about this? And we go, that's a great idea. We work it out and we do it. But we're limited right now with what we can do. We don't have space for us. We all work together really well, the arts organisations in this city. So Act 3, the Globe Theatre, the Regent and us, we're all talking to each other and we share resources. That's okay when they're available. And when they're not available, that's when we get into trouble, and that's when we have to limit what we're able to offer. But because we're a small team, there's only 5 of us at the moment. There should be 7, but we're only working with 5 at the moment. So we're very limited in the space that we have in our offices as well. But if we can expand just where we're sitting, I mean, Martin and I actually share an office which is a storeroom. True story. Yeah. But if we can make that more comfortable for other people to come in, we can retain staff a bit better and we can do as much as we possibly can.
And finally, just in terms of the projected timeline for the project.
Yes, so as I mentioned, our thinking is that most of 2025 will be spent fundraising and that we would start construction in 2026. So at this stage, we're actually just finalising our program for 2025, which is what we're putting on the theatre in 2025. So our intention is that we will be using the theatre in 2025. 2025 will also be the rest of the design work, and the initial design work started, but there's a lot more to do yet, and we would envisage that we would start in 2026 the construction. We are quite firm on the fact though that we need to raise the money first. We don't want to dive into this, build it, and find we've still got to find another $1 million. But we feel that giving us the whole year to raise that money means that we will have the opportunity to put it on hold if it looks like we're not going to do it. But we would never start really before the 2026. That's not intention. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone. I'd just like to commend you on your excellent fiscal responsibility and your savings, and also, your due diligence with your plans ahead. So often these days, do people want everything done for them, and you're going.
Is there a question there, Councillor?
You're going an old school way. No, not really. Just a comment. Thank you.
You won't need one when we get to comments then. Thank you for that supportive comment. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation, guys. Outstanding. Question I have, Marty, in those estimated numbers, did anybody give you a steer what the council's consenting cost might be through the project?
Not at this stage, no. no. I think we've had the first ones that we looked at so far that have been incurred, I think, are only something in the vicinity of $10,000. But I don't have an indication yet of what the council fees would be. Yeah, thanks. Probably wouldn't be difficult to find out though. Sorry.
Sorry, we did get an idea from our architect, but we haven't got that right in front of us.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That is, it might be all, I have a question. I remembered I had a question. It was, no, I think you've covered it. What, you've already paid for your consent that you've got now. How much have you already paid to council, Martin?
We have the latest one that we have is $5,500, which was the end of the resource consent process. We actually, that's due for payment now. We haven't actually paid that one. Okay. And earlier, prior to that, I think we had about 3,000 or so, which was the consultants that the council used to research the resource consent. So, yeah.
Thank you, that's helpful. And Councillor Barrett has come in with a question there. Oops.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wondering, the picture that you put up, I didn't really feel like I got a clear explanation of understanding what that's a picture of. You're talking about a retrofit rather than a brand new, but kind of what is the difference that's in that picture?
Are you talking the picture that we just had?
That one.
Momentarily, that one. So that is an artist's rendering of what the expanded premises are. Now, mostly you saw some pictures of the rehearsal area and out the back. They all need to be addressed. We haven't got renderings of those. The main auditorium is staying relatively similar as it is now. And as we said about offices and public entry and is expanded by about 100 odd metres, which is where you see most of that building there is about the extension. The facade on the front of it is to give it some presence. That's perhaps a wee bit misleading if you were to look at that picture, because behind it is still mostly old railway warehouse.
Right. Thank you for that. Probably another question, as someone who occasionally attends on a Saturday night in the summer, I feel like I get two for the price of one. I get to listen to Speedway while I enjoy the theater, and I'm just wondering kind of what the intent is around soundproofing.
So that's something that we are considering. It's the front of this is, as you can see, it's glazed and will have some noise prevention to it. The rest of it, we've got to have a new roof right throughout. So in terms of the auditorium, soundproofing that is really important, and that gives us the chance to do it when we're doing the new roof. I'm not certain, though, Councillor, whether or not we'll stop every single noise from that from the Speedway.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That does bring us to the end of questions. Thank you for coming in and presenting your really exciting plans to us today and talking about the community outreach programme as well. I think that probably was informative for most members. And we're going to move to debate that presentation. So if you'd like to take a seat back in the gallery. I have an additional recommendation I'd like to move as well as the one in the papers. So the first one there, that the Culture and Sport Committee receive the presentation for information. And then additionally, I'd like to move that the Chief Executive provide a report to Culture and Sport Committee on options for Council to support the Centrepoint Build project in time for any decisions to be referred to the annual budget. And Councillor Meehan is happy to second that. So thank you for that, Councillor. I'll open for any comments on both of those. It's no surprise to any of you that I'm a huge supporter of Centrepoint Theatre. But even for those of us who attend regularly, I don't think we see the extent of the reach that Centrepoint has, the extent of their connection into our community, that community outreach programme, which I think Kate Louise says is the largest community outreach programme of any theatre in the country. That's quite staggering that they manage all of that in a building that's leaking on them, falling down around them, They're working out of storage cupboards, and they're still out there making a huge difference in our community, from different demographic groups, including the Pacifica work that they're doing with our young people, and right through to a seniors program that's in the formative stage. And I think it's hugely impressive, and it's one of the best bits of being the chair of culture and sport is the close relationship I have with the Centrepoint community there. This isn't just about cultural impact, this is about economic impact, it's about community impact. I think the work that they do is multifaceted and really important to our city. I remember, I think it was at your 45th birthday celebrations, one of the sponsors of Centrepoint, which was a firm of accountants, I'm going to go with, talked about how their liaison with Centrepoint enabled them in their recruitment and retention of staff when they're trying to bring in senior professionals into working in our region. Part of the attraction, part of the offer that they could make out into that recruitment process was to talk about how Palmerston North has professional theatre, and that was a significant attractor to that process. So I think there's a lot of benefits that we get from Centrepoint. They've asked us to think about how we can support it, and I don't know what the answer is at this stage. Sorry, I'm not going to move that we move money today, but I think they talked about some things we can think about, whether that's in terms of the fees that Centrepoint are already paying to council for this process, whether that's about support in terms of helping with the fundraising project, helping them talk to other territorial authorities about the business case for supporting regional theatre, and whether that's about putting a programme into our annual budget, maybe next year and or the year after. So my thinking here is to invite the Chief Executive to give us some ideas about that in time for us to make decisions, and I hope you'll feel able to support that. Opening for any other comments, Councillor Harpeter.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm very happy to support this because it is going to be referred to the annual budget, so that means it'll go through another round of discussion at the annual budget stage. I also think it is around economic development and economic decision making, because Centrepoint does bring in that to our region, and that's what we need to be mindful of. So I'm very supportive of that from that point of view, but we will be talking about this at the annual budget, and that's what the chair has referred this to. So it's not making a decision on this right now, it's referring it to our annual budget. So that's why I'm very happy to support both recommendations. And I think that's why you have framed it up in this way. So very happy to support it in that way, but also want to thank you for that presentation. I think the presentation was very thorough, and you have given us a very good opening. And I think when it does come back to the annual budget, you're probably going to need to repeat it all again, because that's what this is going to be all about, giving us the story all over again at the annual budget. But at the end of the day, this is very close to our hearts. Centrepoint is very close to our hearts, and it'll be playing on our hearts in the annual budget, along with all the other things that will be going through the annual budget process. So get ready for the ride.
Thank you, Councillor Harpeter. There are no other comments. Obviously, Councillor Arnott has also commented already. So on that, thank you for those supportive words, Councillor Harpeter. The Chief Executive would like to comment.
Through the chair, I'm just having a look at your recommendation, just thinking about timing. Are you really wishing for a further report to come back through Culture and Sport Committee, because we are about to go into budget deliberations in the not too distant future? So I'd also just as to the presenters that encourage them to consider their submissions towards the budget process, as well as another point of exactly what it is that they're asking for and the things as well.
Thanks, Wade. So I think what you're saying is that we could just delete Then we go, the chief executive provide options for council to support. Would that work? And then that can just be referred to the annual budget or wherever it needs to go. So take out referring it to culture and sport and not a report, just some options. Happy to get creative in this process. Happy with that, seconder? Happy, Wade? Thumbs up. Okay, good. Thank you, everybody. I'll invite you to vote. Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Centrepoint, for coming in today and sharing those exciting plans with us. Our next item on the agenda is the confirmation of minutes. So the recommendation is that the minutes of the Culture and Sport Committee meeting of 26 June 2024, Part 1 public, be confirmed as a true and correct record. I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Invite any questions or corrections. Being none, ask you to vote. It's 10 in favour with 1 abstention. Thank you. Item 9 on our agenda is play policy, the annual implementation and monitoring report for 2024. We have officers to present that. Jury, advisor, Amy Viles, manager, community development. I invite you to come forward and present your report. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. E te hia mana, tēnā koe, ngā mema o te kōmiti, tēnā koutou. Ko manu me jury tōku ingoa, he kaihapai whanakitanga hāpore, ngā mahi a te rehia taku tūranga mahi. Acknowledgements to the Chair and members of the committee today. My name is Manu Me Jury, Play Advisor at Council. This role sits within the Community Development Team. Possibly, there may be some photos to share on the screen today, hopefully. Otherwise, it was as a part of an attachment. That's all right. So I'd like to start with some key highlights of the report. Firstly, a reminder that Council adopted its play policy in 2021, which acknowledges our commitment to reflect playful, fun and flexible approaches in all council spaces, facilities, events and activities. The policy acknowledges the importance of play to both individual and community wellbeing outcomes. Our council is unique in that it acknowledges the importance of play for all ages. Through the establishment of the Play Advisor role in February of last year, the Play Policy Implementation Plan was developed and approved by the senior leadership team. Key scope of the role was to maximise cross-unit collaboration around planning for play across all layers of council operation and services. Progress has occurred through Council's internal play champions, who all do wonderful work, and the establishment of Council and Sport Manawatu's Community Play Champions Network. This has seen new ways of working and connecting with community around their play aspirations. Current and future focus areas extend across various council long-term plan projects and programs, with a particular focus on what play equity mapping could look like, and of course delivering the remaining action points of the implementation plan. A couple of final points. Sport NZ's latest active NZ surveys were released early last year, and the results indicate a continued decline in outdoor physical activity and play rates across rangatahi and tamariki age ranges. That's both across Aotearoa and also here in Pāmi. Linking this to other wellbeing metrics, it highlights the realities of why play provision remains a critical area of focus for both council and community. Councils in particular have a significant impact on play provision in their cities, not only around the spaces provided for designated play, but how our communities access these spaces, how they utilise, engage and socialise once they're in those spaces. The emphasis being that that traditional view of playgrounds and sports fields are one small piece to the puzzle. And lastly, as many play leads around the world will acknowledge, the famous popsicle test can be used as a critical indicator of just how play-friendly a city truly is beyond that of counting playgrounds. It asks a very simple question: can a child safely walk to the corner dairy, buy a popsicle and return home before it melts? The test asks questions like, are there adequate footpaths, pedestrian crossings and cycleways to ensure active transport and thus play on the way opportunities? Is there enough natural shade on the streets to provide adequate rain or sun protection? Are the parents' fears relating to stranger danger or unsafe neighbourhoods justifiable? Is there an overwhelm of vehicle movements creating barriers to the way a child can navigate their neighbourhood? The list goes on, but the test is simple. It focuses on children's everyday freedoms and choices, and the same could be applied across all age groups. Council is not solely responsible for these outcomes, but when you think about all the levels of services provided by a council, I hope that highlights the importance to us all of the value of the play policy and our ongoing commitment to prioritise play in all the work that we do. Kia ora, happy to take questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll open for questions if any members have. I wondered if in 6.2 of the report under next steps, you talk about the Sport NZ funding for play advisor role ceases at the end of January. What's the likely impact of that?
Morena, ko Amy Bars toko ingoa, Acting Community Development Manager. Through the Chair, we are investigating funding options at the moment in acknowledgement of that role, fixed term role ending start of next year. Yeah, there are implications of that role not continuing. We have a play policy and a significant amount of work has been completed in the last 18 months to 2 years, so we wouldn't see that continue. We would have to look at options for how we would absorb that within our existing FTA.
Or I suppose decide, is it an option for us to decide to not have a play policy anymore?
Well, that would be a decision for elected members.
But there are consequences. Thank you. And then I just wanted to ask for some more information about, and this will come in next year's report, I suppose, but I'm interested in the plan for 50 George as the pop-up free play space. When can we expect to see that, and what will that look like?
Yes, thank you. So 50 George has been a collaboration between the community group called Willie Riot, who have previously done work around yarn bombing. And then we've also partnered with Central Library Community Outreach Coordinators. Our hope is that we could introduce, hopefully timing around this summer, depending how our volunteer crochet and knitters go, to activate this outdoor space as a free pop-up loose parts play. The idea around loose parts play is that we put out a selection of what may look like random bits and pieces, but provide a wonderful opportunity for this hour of fun and creativity for people, hopefully of all ages, but particularly tamariki as well.
Thank you. Councillor Hancock, you have a question.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Nami Korua. Just a couple of questions, just in terms of the recommendations for improvement, the table which is actually included in the paper. Page 20 talks about the neighbourhood play system, and I just really want to just get a better understanding of the relation between that and play streets.
So neighbourhood play system was a urban design model, I guess developed by Sport NZ and delivered through our Sport Manawatu counterparts. So our city received its first neighbourhood play system review with Terrace End School at the beginning of this year. And it really is about drilling down to view, I guess, the world that a child lives in. So bringing a tamariki's voice, I guess, hopefully to the decision-making table around how their neighbourhoods developed and how perhaps we can hear what their play aspirations are. The Play Streets is also a kaupapa that is strongly supported by Sport NZ, and actually something that our council has previously done some fantastic work on. But it focuses on how we can support neighbours in their streets to safely get back out on their streets and play without the headache of costly traffic management plans. So it's been a collaboration between Sport NZ, Waka Kotahi to develop that capability that would see what probably most of us here in this room during our childhoods just took for granted, being able to play out on the street.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. And just on the Play Streets, I see that it was completely reviewed in May this year. So have we made any progress in terms of implementation? Are there some examples of where it's actually been implemented?
Yep, so we hope to relaunch, because prior to COVID it was something that was ticking along quite nicely here in our council, but we are hoping to relaunch for National Play Week this year, which is in October, Labour Weekend. So we have had a couple of community play champions approach us, keen to volunteer their streets as perhaps a guinea pig of sorts to support that relaunch.
Kia ora, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, team. Just one question from me on page 18. Under point 2.3, you outlined the budgets that are associated with this activity. Just wanted to get understanding. So in budget number 2006, there was $151,000. I imagine most of it went to the basketball court. I was just interested in the breakdown between the basketball court and its associated activities, the giant deck chair and the musical instruments. Do you know what that was?
Apologies, I don't have it on hand, but I can come back with that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Zabelin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Morena Korua. Last year we had a letter from quite a large number of tamariki in the Savage Crescent area advocating for soccer goals in the reserve. I'm just wondering, with our policy and our implementation plan, how responsive can we be when we do get requests actually coming from rangatahi telling us what they'd like to see in their neighbourhoods? Can we be responsive to that?
So with Savage Crescent, we've done our best to support them where we can. We linked them to the wonderful Men's Shed organisation, who I believe have started building some soccer goalposts, and we've worked with our parks team to ensure that how they're installed obviously meets the various requirements around that. And then we've also looked to support that neighbourhood with more pop-up play opportunities. Since they're approaching us, we have started to host regular school holiday pop-up play sessions, which is exactly what it sounds like, free pop-up play gear out in the park for anyone in the neighbourhood to enjoy. And then we recently installed a tākaro station, partnering with Replay Trust, where we fill the station with free quality donated play and sports equipment. The station remains open, and it's a bit of a community experiment where we have worked with the neighbourhood to hopefully encourage and socialise the concept where anyone can come and enjoy the equipment and then put it back in the station for the next person. And so the bins have just been installed, I believe, last week, and Replay are starting to build up their stock, and hopefully we'll have those bins ready to go within the next couple of weeks.
Awesome, thank you. So we can be pretty responsive, but we could also maybe give more than what they're originally advocating for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think through the play advisor role, it's that conduit between community and council, but also looking to empower the community to develop some of their play aspirations into reality as well.
Kia ora, thank you very much. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Kia ora. No further questions. Thank you both. So I'll move that the committee receive the memorandum titled Play Policy Annual Implementation and Monitoring Report 2024, presented to Culture and Sport on the 25th of September 2024. Seek a seconder for that. Councillor Meehan, thank you. Open for any comments. And Councillor Zabellin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to congratulate you on this excellent work, especially with the pop-up plays. I have been to quite a few of them, and I've enjoyed them, but I also bring objective judges in the form of my offspring, and they really approve. So thank you very much for offering that for the community. I can see with my own eyes that it's really well received and a great community builder in our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Meehan.
Yeah, I too want to just commend you on the work. I think it's a really important project. Anything that gets our young ones out and about and being active in this day and age is really, really important, and we totally support it. Well, I totally support it. Yeah, so I'll just leave it there. I just think it's really important, something we really need to make sure we follow along with and keep a close eye on. Always good to know stats on this sort of stuff. Are we seeing improvements? But from what we're hearing from different areas, I think it's a really, really good project at this stage, and it's making a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also think it's a great thing, the pop-up play. I attended one in July at the opening of the Story Walk, bilingual book that's come out, and also, you know, great seeing kids out and about in the fresh air. Good stuff. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor. Oh, I've just lost you. Oh no, there you are.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair. Tēnā kōrua, Manumia, Mayor Amy. Thank you for the report. Really, I echo the sentiments that have been said. I suppose the one thing I wanted to highlight to Council, to evidence, I suppose, the significance and the importance of the policy and of your work, wonderful work, may I add, is that 19.2% of our population in Palmerston North are young people under the age of 15. And that's growing, that demographic is growing. So their well-being and not only that, but that of their families is hugely impacted by this wonderful policy. So ngā mihi kia tātou. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yep, thank you both for the presentation. I've got you, Madam Mayor, I've lost Amy. I think what I took from your report is that this is entitled Play Policy, but the impact of the work that you're doing is much broader than play. Play is kind of the gateway to it. You talked about general levels of activity, but you also talked about the links into our active transport networks and policies and frameworks. You talked about the environmental concerns that this brings to light. You talked about the cultural expression that through working with organisations like Woolly Riot brings. You talked about that community connectedness. You talked about, in that 50 George Street example, that creation of a linger spot, which actually is an economic impact driver. And so in asking about what happens when we lose funding, this isn't to say that I want us to take away our play policy. I want us to understand how important our play policy is, that the work that's being done under this heading has benefits across multiple policies that of Council's work, multiple things that we think are really important. This is the lever that we use to bring about change in those other areas. It has benefits for its own self, for the value of the experience we're bringing our tamariki, the things that, as Manamir, as you said, that we took for granted in our own childhood that needs a little bit more structuring these days to enable those things to happen. It has those benefits, but it also has much wider benefits into some of those other policy areas for Council. So Thank you very much for bringing those things through in your report today. I'll ask you all to vote, please. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10, we'll move to, which is the response to the recommendations from the Multi-Use Indoor Courts and Covered Outdoor Court Study 2024 for Palmerston North City Council, prepared by RSL Consultants. And that report is presented today by Anne-Marie Mori, Policy Analyst. So that very long introduction, Anne-Marie, gave you a chance there to come down and get settled. I'll hand over to you.
Kia ora koutou, councillors. My name is Anne-Marie Mori. I'm a policy analyst in the Strategic Planning Group. This report, the purpose of bringing this report to you today is to give advice on the recommendations that were included in the multi-use indoor courts and covered court study, which is separately attached to the agenda today. So, councillors, you received a briefing on the study mid-August, which is only a few weeks ago, at which the key findings were presented at that time. The very, very, very high-level findings are captured in section 1.3 of my report today. However, a full description of the study's conclusions can be found both in the executive summary and in section 14 of the study, again in that attachment. So the study was completed, finalised not long after the briefing that we had. So today I'd just like to really draw attention to those recommendations. So they're kind of in three different areas as outlined in the report. The first is around optimising what we have at the moment. So that could involve entering into access agreements with other court providers if we needed to, if codes were struggling to accommodate their sports, and we heard a little bit from Kelsey about the pressures around sport, trying to accommodate within our existing facilities, which are heavily used during those peak times. It also could mean that we take a look at how we schedule activities at our facilities to make sure that we're accommodating the sports needs the best that we can with what we have. The second kind of recommendations are about covering outdoor courts at tennis and netball courts at Vortia Park. This was brought to council 3 years ago by the regional sports organisations for tennis and netball, and the study found that that is worth exploring to supplement our indoor court network. So we have some, I suppose, further work to do in that particular area. And the third recommendation is around work that's already begun on planning for a new replacement facility for Arena 5, which was funded in the LTP following the endorsement of the Central Energy Trust Arena Master Plan last year. The benefit that a new Arena 5 will bring is to future-proof the city for future population growth, particularly in that younger demographic where we are likely to see more participation in indoor sports, and also to provide flexibility within the arena complex, particularly Arena 2, to keep providing for a wide range of event use and non-sport activities. Overall, the study recommends that a range of interventions will be required to ensure that there is adequate indoor court supply into the future. So turning to those recommendations, Attachment 2 provides a brief description of the approach that staff propose taking in response to those recommendations. And we note that this response will involve staff across the organisation, as well as with support from our colleagues at Sport Manawatu. And just on that, under our partnership and funding agreement with Council, Sport Manawatu has responsibilities to work with the sports sector and is a key implementer of Hauraki Tour, the Horizons Region Spaces and Places Plan, which guides facility development. So that's it. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Appreciate you taking us back through that, and as you said, we had a briefing not very long ago, so elected members had an opportunity to really get into some of their questions there. But I will invite anybody who has questions now to join the queue. And I do also, as you said, want to recognise Kelly and the Sport Manawatu team. Thank you for joining us this morning to hear the reports that are of interest in your area.
Sorry, through the chair, I was remiss to say that Carl and Victor, who are sitting up there behind me from Sport Manawatu, were on the project steering group that worked on this piece of work along with John Lynch, our venues and events manager.
That's great. Thank you, Anne-Marie. There aren't any questions on your report, so you can sit back down in the gallery, and I will move that the committee note the recommendations of the multi-use courts and covered outdoor court study 2024 for Palmerston North City Council will inform future advice on the provision of indoor and outdoor covered courts. Yeah, I think we've all been quite deep into this as a piece of work, and that was a really good briefing that we had from the team not so very long ago. I think all I'd note from the report is that there were a lot of options that were looked at under those three headings. You're optimising existing facilities, converting, repurposing, improving existing facilities, and developing new facilities. And a number of ideas came forward there from the team and from community as well, in that, individuals and sports clubs. And we haven't agreed at this stage to progress all of those. We've picked the things that we think we're capable of doing within the budgets and programmes that we have there. So I'm excited to see what that starts to look like. Kelsey talked this morning about the need for Arena 5 there, and that comes under that developing new facilities heading. So I think we're heading in the right direction and strongly evidence-based as we do it, which is a great place to be. So thank you, Anne-Marie, and the wider team for your work there. Councillor Meehan, are you happy to second that? Yes, and I will invite you all to vote. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Harpiter, you just popped up. It's okay, righto, we'll vote. Carried unanimously, and I'm sure Councillor Harpiter was being very supportive. No, we're down to 10 now, I think, are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. Oh no, there's 11 of us. Can we retake the vote? It won't make any difference. We're all unanimous in support of the marvellous work. But it will just cause a question when it comes to the minutes next time around. Right, let's retake that, and everybody make sure you press the button. Still only 10 of us. I give up. Somebody's button might not be working. We'll add that manually. Thank you. Let's move. How are we doing for time? I'm going to squeeze you in, Aaron, before we go for morning tea, which is not to discourage questions, everybody. But we're moving to item 11, Statement of Intent to Develop Reserve Management Plans. Over to you, Aaron.
Morning, Madam Chair and councillors. We think this is a pretty straightforward one, but I'll quickly run through a few points for you just to make sure we're all on the same page. This is the next step in our reserve management planning process. You received reports recently about reserve classifications, and we're out for consultation on that at the moment, having received a couple of submissions yesterday actually, which was great to see. We've reorganised our parks planning management work plan a little bit. You'll see in the report as we've seen the priorities change as we've worked through 10-year plans and so on. I do need to make a quick apology for the lack of progress on the Kuroa Outdoor Recreation Plan, and this might be a little bit silly, but I was going to apologise for Councillor Barrett, who's kept a particular eye on that over the years and been keen that we progress it. That was a workload issue for myself, who took on that work, and I got a little bit waylaid by a lot of urban growth planning and didn't manage to get to it, but we're reallocated that work to another officer and hoping to get going again. We're looking to progress the general policy. in terms of prepping for this work, we'd had a look around the country, and we thought that one of the Manawatu district was doing with a general policy looked pretty good, and we thought maybe rather than reinvent the wheel, we'd follow their example and structure our planning like that, and prepare our omnibus reserve, start work on preparing the omnibus reserve management plan. So this report is seeking your permission to take the next step with that work, which was to publicly notify that we're going to do it. This is a Reserves Act process, so we've got a very staged process to work through. We're required to let the public know that we're going to do it, give them the opportunity to let us know if there's any issues and thoughts that they think we need to deal with. Then we prepare a draft and bring it back to you and then consult on that. So it will take quite a long time, but we'll push on with that now if you're happy with us to proceed.
Thank you, Aaron. Councillor Hancock has a question.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a very quick question. Thanks, Aaron. Just in terms of the proposed timeline, there's a bit of a straddling, I think, of the current triennium and the next triennium. So I just wonder if you've got any comments about that. Thanks.
No, Councillor, I hadn't thought about that, to be honest, when we put together our time frame, and I don't know whether perhaps when the new council's formed, it might be worth something like a workshop or some sort of understanding, depending on if there's a number of changes to the council. If most of you are back here, that may not be necessary. We'll have to perhaps think about that at the time.
Thanks, Aaron. Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Hancock. I think reporting and consultation on the draft omnibus does take us post-election, so it's probably worth thinking about scheduling.
Okay, well, apologies, we'll reconsider that a little.
No, okay, that's very good. And there are no further questions. So you got off lightly on that one. But so I will move the recommendations as on screen. Council adopt the reserve management planning structure and revised work programme described in option 1 of the report. We notify our intention to develop the following reserve management plans and invite the public and interested parties to provide suggestions as per section 41(5) of the Reserves Act 1977. A, the General Policy Reserve Management Plan, which is new. B, the Omnibus Reserve Management Plan, also new. And C, the Kahutarawa Outdoor Recreation Plan, revised. Happy to move that, seconded by Councillor Meehan. I'm sure Councillor Barrett would have been interested in the Kahutarawa Outdoor Recreation Plan. I'm absolutely convinced he didn't leave to avoid talking about it. So we'll pass that one on to him. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for bringing the report, the start of a big process here for us. I'm pleased to see that we've looked at different ways of doing it, taken some learnings from our neighbours that will hopefully streamline some of these processes, and we'll look forward to see how that goes when we take it out for consultation. I will ask you all to vote now. See if we can get a number bigger than 10. 11. Success. Thank you. Carried unanimously. And we are now going to break for morning tea, and we'll be back in at 10 to 11, please. Thank you. Kia ora koutou. Are we taking some seats? Thank you, elected members. Great. We are up to the CCO annual reports, and we are kicking off with Te Manawa, our first report for today. So I will invite Adrian van Dyke, the chair of Te Manawa Museums Trust Board, who is accompanied by Simon Barnett, Trust Board member, to come and present the annual report. Please have a seat. Make the red light come on. Yes, somehow. Press a button, see what happens. Oh, you might need to wave the card at it. No? Right-hand button? There you go. Over to you, Adrian, for the presentation from Te Manawa. Thank you.
I think we've got a video to start with. Have we got sound?
We'll just try that again to get the sound working. It looked lovely.
It is lovely.
Are you able to narrate it?
We could just watch.
Mark's going to sing.
Great, thanks.
We'll quiz after.
That's what watching silent movies must have been like in the good old days. Right, kia ora koutou te whānau, ne te mihi, mahora, kia tātou katoa, e hui, tahi nui tēnei rā. Kia ora everyone, and warm greetings for all of us present today. As I've said, Susanna couldn't make it, as she's at home sick in bed. I've got Simon, one of our other trustees, with me today, so thank you, Simon. He whakakatuia e koro e tuka ngā mirimaya, a waka that is expertly lashed together will not come undone in rough seas. I feel that the Te Manawa waka is expertly lashed and we are well placed to be able to navigate the way forward. I firstly want to thank my fellow trustees for their support of Te Manawa over the past 12 months, but more importantly the Te Manawa team who work day after day to provide a world-class facility that is enjoyed by our diverse and wide community. Over the past 12 months, we've welcomed to the Board of Trustees 2 new council-appointed trustees, Simon Barnett and Dr. Sarah Rushholm. We've also been privileged to have co-opted Caroline Thrum and Gillian Lawn to the board for their specialist skills and experience. I personally feel that we have a fantastic trustee board with a diverse skill set and a great level of energy around the board table. Also, thank you to our iwi representatives, Terry Hapi and Peter Terangi, for their continued guidance and support. The last 12 months have been a busy one for the team at Te Manawa, as the leadership team structure has fully embedded, and the benefits of this are showing through in some of our key results, which include exceeding our physical visitor numbers for the year by over 7,000 visitors, exceeding our external revenue target by over 25%, a visitor satisfaction rating of 98% against a target of 95%. The acquisition of the Peter Bush Archive. Santa's Cave had a record attendance levels of 18,000 visitors. The Six Extinctions exhibition attracted over 35,000 visitors over a 15-week period, which attracted a number of visitors from outside the region, proving that Te Manawa continues to be able to attract people to come to Palmy. It is estimated that this contributed over $6 million to the local economy. A refresh of the Te Ranga Whenua Gallery with new lighting, signage and display cabinets for the taonga to be displayed. The team delivered some exceptional exhibitions over the past year, with some highlights being local architect Brian Elliott's work, the Paul Dibble Continuum, which opened just prior to Paul's passing, Rita Angus, New Zealand modernist, Code Breakers, Women in Gaming, and previous mentioned Six Extinctions, to name but a few. Financial performance for the period was strong, with income exceeding budget and expenses being well managed, resulting in an annual operating surplus of $262,000. Achievement of most of the performance measures in the Statement of Service performance as required by the council-controlled organisation, and something that the team is very proud of. While reflecting on a positive year past, we now look to the future and have some exciting challenges and opportunities ahead of us, with a significant program of work as part of the 2030 roadmap. This includes the development of an interactive science centre and working with our key partners PNCC in developing a future home for Te Manawa as part of the cultural precinct work that is ongoing. I truly feel that the waka is expertly lashed and we are able to weather any seas, that be they calm or rough. In closing, the work that we do could not be possible without the support of our key partner, Palmerston North City Council, and we thank you for your continued financial and non-financial support. Kia ora. So I'll take our annual report as read unless there's any questions.
I'm sure there will be some questions, Adrian. Thank you for taking us through that. I wanted to ask about the online engagement that the officers talked about in their report. I said that target wasn't met this year, and Te Manawa attributed this to staff vacancies during the year. I did wonder whether you feel like online engagement is going to lift again. I find myself a little bit.
It's a tough one, I think, because again, with online engagement, you actually have to have something that people are keen to engage with, and directing people to the online medium. So again, having new staff will hopefully help some of that in being able to create the right sort of content that people want to go and suss out. But yeah, it's a very difficult, again, who knows what people want to take on in an online sense.
And this question, I don't know if you'll be able to answer, but you talk about stopping focusing on the touring exhibitions. Where we have had touring exhibitions in the past, what happens to those now we're not touring them anymore?
Some of them fall into a reasonable state of disrepair. So we're currently working on Sunlight, which was a very popular exhibition, and that's being refurbed at the moment and will be, I'm pretty sure it's coming live shortly. Actually, I think it's for the school holidays. So that has been refurbished and will be able to be available for touring again. So I think a lot of them actually come back in pretty poor repair. So the focus is really, for the next wee while, is getting the Science Centre component up and running. And some of those, the components of that may be able to be travelled around the world, the country as well.
So it's not that you're not doing it, it's just not a particular focus.
Not a particular focus at the moment, yeah.
Okay, thank you, that's good to know. Councillor Harpeter.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks very much for your report. Just looking at page 73 and looking at what the performance was at the end of the financial year for 2023 and looking what the forecast was for 2024, how do you see things being different?
This current year? I think we will be closer. So there's a couple of factors within the 2024 performance. One was the delay in purchasing some of our capital items. So we didn't have as much depreciation because we didn't purchase the capital items early on in the year. So our depreciation was down. I think we'll be much closer to budget in this current financial year that we're in.
So you're putting it down to depreciation. You think that'll be
part of it, but also we did bring in more external revenue, which was a positive.
External. So how much would that be in terms of?
It was this current year or the year that we've just had?
The current year.
we're targeting, so the team are working on a financial plan, and actually what we can, so we haven't actually agreed as a board what the external target will be, but it definitely will be higher. We're aiming to get more funds in, so we're not as reliant on council for everything.
So do you think you're realistic in terms of aiming for 1.7 in terms of what the bottom line is, in terms of what you achieve for 2023?
So between 2023 and 2025, you're saying?
No, just to look at what is actually been achieved. Is that realistic or?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
There's quite specific things we're looking at, so a lot of that is around funding for the Science Centre.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harpiter. Any other questions? I wanted to note in 4.1, you talked about, which is of the officer's report, not your report, it talks about your success this year in raising community grants, $257,558. I know that has been an area of difficulty over the last few years, has been fundraising. Do you have a comment on if you think that's a change? Is that sustainable to be raising more community funding in the future?
I think it comes back to, and this is probably more of a general comment, but I think if you've got a specific purpose, then the community funding organisations tend to provide that funding. There's still not a lot of, I think it is still tight, but we've had some pretty good ones. So the Peter Bush was a big chunk of that, and yeah, the plan that we've got going forward is really based around specific things.
Great.
Yeah, I think the community funding will always be a challenge. But
okay, thank you, Adrian. And in your opening comments, you talked about how confident you feel as the chair in the kind of skills matrix you have at the board level. Without getting into personal information, do you feel? How do you feel like the financial literacy of the Te Manawa board is at the moment?
Oh, really good. So Gillian is who I talked about as a co-opted member. She's an accountant and a financial officer for what's it called now, Te Punganga. So she's got fantastic financial backing. Simon runs his own business and has done successfully for a number of years, so has again got a good financial sense. I've got a reasonably good financial background as well, so I think from a financial perspective, yeah, we're in good shape from a board perspective.
That's great, thank you. Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in regards to the performance for the year, it's in 3.1, it's got a calculation around the economic benefit to the city around the 6 extinctions, and 35,000 visitors, really quite strong. And then it's calculating that it's $6 million to the city.
There was an external report that was completed that we can probably provide to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just be interested in that, because if that's a robust figure to draw that sort of value out, I think that's really quite impressive.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, if that can be circulated, just be interested for future reports, just so we're not. I want to understand the local.
We didn't just punch the number out.
And also I'm imagining a lot of the visitors were children as well, and so I'm just the figure of what it calculates to be is quite high. So I think it's important just to have a robustness around that, and particularly around understanding that those exhibitions you want to be free, and for our 75,000 contribution towards that. It just is a good case study for future.
Yeah, definitely. No, there was definitely an external report completed, so I'll get that available.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. There aren't any further questions, so thank you for bringing your annual report to us, and congratulations to the board. Thank you for the invitation to join your AGM the other evening. There was a number of councillors went along, showing our ongoing support for Te Manawa. But if you'd like to take a seat back in the gallery, I will move that the committee receive Te Manawa Museum Trust Board's annual report 2023-24, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Thank you very much, and open that for any comments. If you'd like to take a seat back in the gallery, you can. Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one short comment from me to say well done on a good financial performance this year. I've been critical in the past, so it's only fair that when you're doing well, I'm complimentary. And I'm highly impressed by more than doubling your community grant funding this year. So excellent work and keep it up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just drawing out from my question into comment now that if those sort of translation into visitor numbers, which are increasing, I've been quite impressed with the visitation, because in the past it's probably been an area of concern that it's been a lot of school children on buses just going to the science centre, and it seems like that's been the predominant of our attendees historically, well in the past, but now it seems like we've got a broader audience. And if we're attracting, like this report says, a third of visitors from outside our region, I think that's a point to highlight. And if it translates into the sort of millions for the wider economic benefit, I think we should really understand that. And so we have less concern around them not charging for exhibitions, and for us to contribute towards that, because that's really has the return that's multiplied far in excess of what the small amounts that we contribute to attract those events. So I just really wanted to highlight that in comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Kia ora. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say fantastic what you're doing, and one of my areas on council and Councillor Hancock is Anzac Armistice, and thank you for your continued support with displays. Great to see the Christmas Cave stats, and look forward to those growing. Thank you.
Thank you all. Yes, thank you to Manawa for everything you do. I think as Councillor Arnott's alluded to, the diversity of the stories you tell reflects the diversity of our community, and that's always something I enjoy seeing come through in your reports. I think interesting comments around the table on economic impact of something like Six Extinctions. I know from conversations with the board that report is done by the same external body that does our economic impact assessment for sporting events and our major events. So there is consistency across how we're assessing those things. I'm not always convinced it's entirely right. There's something of the dark arts in that economic impact assessment, but at least we're consistent across the different places that we look for that. But see, $6 million of inward investment into the community does give us some confidence that it was a good use of public money to support bringing Six Extinctions to the city to deliver those outcomes. I note that I think Te Manua Chief Executive is doing some research with Waikato Museum, who took Six Extinctions after us, but are charging for it. So that will be an interesting comparison to see on the impact of a similar setup, to see what the impact is on visitor numbers and then economic impact. And that might also add into this conversation about sometimes unintended consequences of charging or not charging. And I want to say how grateful I am to the board and the staff of Te Manua for their willingness to look at alternative models and to report back on that. Really grateful. And the other point to agree with Councillor Wood is it is great to see community grants come back up. And that's one of the benefits to the city of having Te Manua and our other CCOs set up as CCOs. It means you're able to attract community funding, which we couldn't do if you were within council. So that's a really strong success indicator for me, and so really pleased to see that heading in the right direction. So thank you, and please pass on our thanks to the rest of the board and staff, and get well soon to Susanna. I will ask you to vote to receive that report, please. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Our next annual report is from the Regent Theatre Trust Board, and we have the Davids. David Walsh, General Manager, David Lee, Chair, coming to present hot off the heels of their annual general meeting last night. So, hand over to you, gentlemen. Kia ora.
Turn it off. There we go. Thank you, Councillor, and thank you all councillors for the time you're giving us today. We indeed did have a very successful AGM last night, and in fact we've had a very successful year. I'm very proud to be able to lead what I consider a magnificent trust board. I think we have most areas of responsibility covered by a specialist on the board, and things are ticking over nicely. David.
Thank you. Yeah, my report is written here, and I've got an abridged version of that with a PowerPoint presentation. There is no sound to it, so
Thank you.
that's fine. That first slide there, you know, which shows you Matilda on the front of the building. When I approached downtown, they were so willing to help out because they want to make Broadway vibrant. And we've got, we did it for Kinky Boots again, and we did it, and we're going to do it for Pack Hands. So we'll be projecting from downtown across to our building. The review of the year, it's a good slide to start with. I should apologise for those councillors that were at the meeting last night, because they will see the same shortened version. That slide there is Massey graduation, which shows you the streamers and it shows you the dry sparks and the joy that it brings. But the downside is it also shows you the graduates at the front of the theatre, not as many as there used to be. And we're finding now with graduation ceremonies that the actual number of ceremonies in the city is declining. And where will we be in 5 years? We don't know. So we can't rely on them every year that yes, they're going to come back. We'll take them while they're there, obviously. So that slide shows a good point and also a bad point in a way. Our attendances for the year was 99,000 people, which was very, very pleasing, following on from 113,000 last year, and you can see the decline with the COVID era. We didn't know what was going to happen last year, and we set our targets at 87,000, being a little bit cautious, but people are still coming back to the theatre, so it's very impressive. Matilda was our biggest for admissions, with 11,910 people coming through for the 12 performances, so that's close on 1,000 people per performance. Our attendances since the theatre reopened is 2.5 million, which again is very impressive. And when I typed that slide out, of course my mind just sort of goes off into a tangent. I thought if 2.5 million people came in the front door, 2.5 million people would have to leave through the front door. What's that doing to my carpet? And the carpet is still the original carpet from 1998 when it went down. So when the saying was, do it once, do it right, you have done it right because the carpet is standing up to the test of time. Our ticket sales were 53,000 for ticketed events with a total value of $2.4 million, which shows you we are a major player in the country with shows coming through. Now that slide's hard to read, even with my glasses on, but there's about 12,000 tickets that we sold at the box office. The call centre and the groups hardly register. I think off the top of my head there's about 200 call centre and 50 odd for the groups. But you can see the mobile devices and the websites are where the majority of our tickets are being sold. I did go to a conference a number of years ago when this was first coming out, where people were buying tickets online, and we were told at the time by the expert, your online sales will only be probably 15% of your total sales. Little did they know. It's close to 75% to 80% of our sales now. The financials, which this is the slide you're all interested in, as well as ourselves. You look straight to the bottom line there of $142,000 surplus for the year. Need I say more? It was very impressive. And just being on the financials, the board signed off the audit for the previous 2 years in May, and this last financial year's audit was done and dusted at 20 to 6 last night. So we're right on target. It's fantastic. Friends of the Regent, again, we have to compliment them, and we do that happily. Those last two numbers are the interesting ones. They worked 3,200 hours at the Regent and contributed $79,000 towards the purchase of goods for us. And that's one of them. That's our boarders. We bought 5 sets of boarders, $32,000. And there's our new sound desk, the DM7. It's very impressive. It has 120 channels, which means we can have 120 people on stage with microphones, and we can control each individual one. Our previous desk had 48 channels. That machine there is very high tech, and there's only 2 being operated in New Zealand at the moment. Go back a slide. This coming year, we currently have 193 bookings. Yes, we do. We have 193 bookings this year compared to 179, which we had last year. And I end the presentation with thanks to the Trust Board, obviously, and to the Palmerston City Council staff, who are so complimentary and willing to help us. We don't have any troubles at all communicating with the staff here. They're fantastic to deal with. And the councillors who are so supportive. I mean, it just makes our job so much easier that we know people are behind us. And thanks to the Friends and to my team, which is dynamic but small, and to everyone who attends the Regent, because if no one came, I wouldn't be sitting here today, would I? So thank you for that.
Thank you, David. And David, we'll open that for any questions. I just wanted to ask, you started with talking about the graduation situation. David, have you had any conversations with Massey or UCOL about what you can expect in the future?
Not at this stage, no. No, we haven't. It's just something that I've noticed over the years. I mean, look at my age. I go back to the Opera House days when graduation ceremonies started on a Monday, ended on a Friday. And we had 2 a day, some days we had 3 a day, capacity houses. Now they start on Tuesday and finish on Thursday. And then they do come in later in the year and have 2 days as well. So, but we didn't have UCOL back in those days, but now we got UCOL. And their numbers are increasing a little, but it's the Massey ones that we're keeping an eye on.
So we're just watching that as a change of usage into the future. It was really impressive to see the Matilda figures, particularly $1,000 people on average for every show. That's incredible. But in the average size of audience per event in the officers' report has us sitting at around the 250 mark. So I just wondered what plans the staff or the board have to try and get that average number up.
I mean, all you want is some shows like, shows like the Palmerston North Dance Association, who are coming in this Friday and are here for a week, and their numbers, we might have 8-10 people in the auditorium watching the dancers on stage. So you have a week's worth of that, it brings your average right down. We're finding the tribute shows that are coming through are sitting at round about between 400 and 600 people per performance. Kinky Boots started very quietly, but ended very, very well. So it's up and down, isn't it, really?
And averages are a cruel measure, absolutely. Would it be helpful, do you think, in terms of your reporting, to report averages on the different types of events that you host, so we can see which ones do better in terms of numbers? That might be helpful to us to understand the model that you're operating.
Yes,
okay,
certainly.
Good, thank you. Councillor Harpeter.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks very much for your report. It's really impressive what you've given us. Questions around working with businesses around Broadway and around the Regent in terms of working together to maximise what we can offer as a city in terms of packages. Is that thought come across the board's table or across the venue's table in terms of maximising what we can offer for the venue and for the city?
It's taxed our minds for a long time. In fact, our previous manager, Tubac Charles, formed some group with the with the closer retailers to try and build rapport with them and to get some packages together. I'm not sure where you're at, but the board have certainly talked about it, and I'm pretty sure there's contact, isn't it?
Yeah, there is contact, and because the retailers in Broadway, there's a lot of eating houses there. You know, you try and get yourself a seat when we've got a show on at the Regent. I mean, they're packed. We have people coming into the theatre with takeaway food because they can't eat it all in time, and they've got it in containers. So the retailers are doing well, and they're aware of what we have coming up, and the approximate numbers. We've got nothing formal, but we just communicate and talk across the road to Munch and bits and pieces about we've got this show coming and we're expecting so many people, just to keep them in the loop.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an observation that informs a question, so I hope you'll be with me.
Get to the question.
So my question is, on a show that's fully subscribed, progressive ticket pricing makes good sense because the seats will fill up anyway. On a show that's less subscribed, I noticed going to Kinky Boots the other day, the back of the theatre was probably 95% full, the front of the theatre was probably only 20% full. Do users have a choice on whether to use the progressive ticketing system, or is that just a given, that's what it is?
No, that's if I want to use the word dictated to us by the promoter. They'll say they want us back 2 rows will be at $35, the middle section will be at $55, and the front section will be at $85. So it's giving you a choice of where you want to buy your tickets. And yes, we did notice that in Kinky Boots the $35 tickets did sell. That's something Act 3 will review. And in their next show, which is We Will Rock You, which comes on in March, I'm quite sure that they will extend those back couple of rows, another couple of rows as well, to give the patrons more opportunity to buy those tickets.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. No further questions. Thank you, David and David, for coming in today. If you want to take a seat back into the gallery, I will move the recommendation that the committee receive the Regent Theatre Trust Board's annual report 23-24, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Open that for any comments. I think it's always good news to hear the update on the state of the carpet. Thank you, David, for that. And that might be useful for the update on facilities that's coming later. Do it once and do it right. We can all note something there. If the Mayor was here, he would say that the Regent is a jewel in our crown. I think he said it last night. He says it pretty much every time he's asked to specify the jewels in the crown of Palmerston North. The Regent is right up there. We're really grateful for the work that the Trust Board does, and the work of the Friends of the Regent, as well as your team, David, in bringing shows on stage, attracting people into our city, contributing to the vibrancy of our central city. We wouldn't be the same place without you. Palmerston North is lucky to have that building and lucky to have it so well managed and operated. So thank you for that. I'm really encouraged to see how that partnership with Act 3 is going, now that they're bringing 2 shows into the theatre every year. That's going to be challenging in the amount of time it takes out of your available time to market into the travelling shows market, and also for them in how they pick shows that can fill the Regent. You know, it's a huge venue by regional terms. And the progressive ticketing question, and thank you to Councillor Wood for bringing that up, because that is something we've been talking about with Act 3 and with the Regent for a number of years, going, how do we make our shows more accessible? Because the feedback we were getting from the community, even before the current cost of living crisis, was that some of those shows were quite expensive. And when we had a flat rate for ticketing for those Act 3 shows, we got that feedback. So it's interesting to see how it's working. It'll probably take us a while to figure out how to make it work best. But yes, clearly there is some price sensitivity in the market, and good to see how that review comes through. So thank you for your report. Thank you for the work that you do. Please pass that on back to all of the people back at the Regent who do that for us. Really grateful. Councillor Harpeter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just also want to say thank you very much for all the work that you do for the Regent. 2.5 million people is a lot of people to go through the facility, and it does do all the wear and tear on the facility as well. So thank you for all of the work that you do. And from an economic development point of view for our economy, it is, and it does bring in a lot of money for our economy. So thank you very much for all the shows that you do put on, and also for all the people that go through that use it for different purposes as well. So I don't think you mentioned that, but there are a lot of people that use it for a lot of community reasons as well, and they appreciate that as well. You have a lot of ballerinas that go through there, and a lot of other people that go through that facility and love being on that big stage for other reasons as well. So thank you very much for all you do for that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. No further comments, so I will invite you all to vote. Carried unanimously. Thank you. And then moving on to the Globe Theatre Trust for your annual report. And we have Jerry Keating, Manager, and John Adams, Chair, coming to share your thoughts. Deputy Mayor. Oh, I need to press a button.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair. I just wish to state that I do have an interest in the Globe. I have a close family member who is a trustee, but I don't believe I have a conflict. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Jerry and John, over to you. You're on.
Morning. It's good to be here to present our report. In light of the fact that I know very little about the state of our carpets at the Globe, and because he's far more eloquent than I'll pass over to Jerry to present our report.
There you go. Good morning, Madam Chair, City Councillors, Council staff, and everyone watching, either in the Council chamber or online. It is my pleasure to present the Globe Theatre Trust Board's draft annual report for July 1st, 23 to June 30th, 24. The year started with the Manawatu Performing Arts Competition Society and ended with the Comedy Hub's Cage and Coombe and Friends. Including these two events, we had 715 theatre usages and 343 theatre performances. We also recorded 27,126 audience members, 4,591 participants, and 3,936 hours of use. All of these figures are records for the Globe Theatre. While not wanting to dwell too long on these figures, it is important to note, if you haven't already done the maths, that 715 usages equates to just under 2 usages a day, 343 performances is just under 1 performance a day, and 3,936 hours of use is just under 11 hours of use per day. There is another figure I'd like to highlight, and that is 5,086. That is the number of people who worked backstage in any capacity: technicians, set designers, stage hands, makeup and hair, babysitters, parent helpers, etc. Most of us have been to shows, and we understand that what we see on stage is only a small proportion of what actually happens behind the scene. We continue to work with our MOU groups, and we were very pleased to see that at the end of the year, our MOU groups accounted for 56% of theatre use and 48% of performance. These groups represent what the Globe Theatre is all about. Our core purpose is to provide a dynamic, bustling, vibrant centre for the performing arts community in Palmerston North. We also worked with many community groups throughout the year, and this year, those community groups accounted for 33% of theatre use and 32% of performances. If you add those figures to our MOU figures, we have a theatre with community usage of 89% and community performances of 80%. As we like to say, showcasing our community. It is worth noting, and this is just a rough figure, but looking through the various council pages relating to grant allocations, something like $50,000 was awarded to local groups over the past year who brought their events to the Globe Theatre. So I think a huge thank you should go to our council for their support of the arts. I would like to commend the Manawatu Theatre Society, who over the past 2 years have provided a wonderful opportunity for new and emerging directors to bring not your typical type theatre shows to the stage. In April 23, they brought Growth. In April 24, they brought A Time Like This. And in August 2024, they brought Stockholm. So 3 very edgy and not your typical local theatre society offerings. Throughout the year, the theatre hosted events that reflected the exciting, multicultural nature of Palmerston North and provided opportunities for local communities to share and celebrate their cultural identity and interests. The theatre was also home to many festivals throughout the year: New Zealand Blues Roots and Groove Festival, Cuban Film Festival, Palmy Drag Fest, Comedy Hub Palmerston North Comedy Fest, Alliance Française Francophone Film Festival, Manawatu International Jazz Festival, and our very own Summer Festival. We continue to attract national and international performers, with 41 acts classed as either national or international. Our international acts came from the USA, UK, Spain, and Australia. We extended our Summer Sounds Festival and renamed it the Summer Festival and invited and included other genres. So it used to be just a music festival, now it involves theatre, drag, etc. This festival ran over January, February and March and gave patrons a 15% discount on ticket prices if they attended 3 shows or more. We continue to promote the Palmy Companion Card, with 17 individuals attending 32 shows throughout the year. All of the above dovetails nicely with the Council's vision of small city benefits, big city ambition. Primarily Goal 2, a creative and exciting city. The theatre contributes to many of the outcomes listed for Goal 2 in the Oranga Papaioa City Strategy. We are very pleased with our performance monitoring for the year. While we did not achieve all our targets, we are comfortable with our assessments/explanations. We have received our statement of intent for July 25 to June 28, and have already started working on those expectations and look forward to presenting our statement of intent in early 2025. Looking ahead, our bookings for the year are good. Our MOU groups are locked in, as are many of our secondary groups. Inquiries for hire are coming in daily, and we even have bookings for 25-26. We are very close to finalising our audits for 21-22 and 22-23, and expect 23-24 to take place in October. This has been a very long and exhaustive process, and we will be very glad when it is complete and we are up to date. Our thanks once again goes to the Palmerston North City Council and the various councillors and staff members we interact with on a regular basis. I know we say this every year, but the support we receive from Gillian Tasker, Sarah Claridge and Bailey Woodman makes running the theatre so much easier. We thank our hirers and we thank our audience members. You can't have one without the other, and we are very fortunate to have the support of both groups. The Globe Theatre is recognised locally, nationally and internationally for being an excellent theatre. We have worked hard to get that recognition, and we will continue to work hard to keep it. Before I finish our presentation, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge Roger Fox. Roger passed away on May 27, 2024, the Monday before the Manawatu Jazz Festival weekend. Roger was a huge supporter of the Globe Theatre. He was on the original trust board set up in 2002 and always brought his shows to the Globe, even when it felt there wasn't enough room on the stage. Roger did more in one day than most of us do in a week. The word no was just not in his vocabulary. He was a huge supporter to so many people in the arts community, and we are all better people for having known Roger Fox. I hope as a council you have read our annual report with as much pride as we have had presenting it. As you know, we are very proud of our theatre and very proud of what we offer to our city and our community. John and I are happy to take any questions, and I will leave it up to John to talk about my winning the 2023 Evans Team Leader of the Year award. Just because it was part of last year's, so it kind of does fit, dovetails.
I think we did canvass that quite a lot last year, Jerry.
Annual report.
If you'd like to win it again, I'm sure we'll talk about it again. Thank you both for coming in and speaking to that. John, is there anything you did want to add about how marvellous Jerry is? No, good. I think he covered that for himself quite well. Thank you also for reflecting on Roger's passing again today. We did have a moment of silence in chamber here just after Roger passed. But I wanted to ask you what effect losing him will have on the events that are synonymous with him. The decision was to go ahead this year. What's that going to look like in the future?
So obviously with Roger's passing, the Jazz Festival was already sorted out, so that was fine. I worked with Julie Lamb from Wellington. We had a very long discussion about whether we do go ahead with the Blues Roots and Groove Festival. We decided we would. We put it together very, very quickly, because unfortunately when Roger passed away, he had everything in his head. He didn't have it written down. So we worked really hard to get it going. I'm still waiting for Julie just to finish it off, the finances, etc. I'm leaving that all up to her. My understanding is that the Manawatu Jazz Club is going ahead with next year's Jazz Festival. Obviously, Kevin Downing has a wonderful wealth of knowledge. They have already secured an international guitar star. And I've already met with them on 2 occasions to discuss the planning and what we're going to do and how we're going to run it, etc., etc. So, like, you know, it was a huge loss to the community, especially with all his contacts, but, you know, everybody is still keen to make everything work. The Roger Fox Big Band is going to continue. Whether they will come to Palmerston North as often as they did, that has to be discussed. But we'll hopefully keep that link going, because I know they were involved with the Christmas celebrations in the square, etc. So hopefully as we go forward, yeah, we will keep doing what he set up and what he does.
Thank you, Jerry. And my other question was about external fundraising. The comment in the officer's report was the Globe did not receive any external grants in 23-24. And I wondered, I couldn't tell from that, is that because you didn't apply for any? You applied and were turned down? I wondered if you could say a bit more about that, please.
Okay, so we, in the year previous, we had engaged an interior designer because we decided that our next big project was the foyer upgrade, which I think I showed everybody some images and stuff when you guys came around. So that was our focus for last year. It's potentially, well, it was $180,000 fund that we needed. We did apply to a number of agencies who unfortunately felt that it was just not in keeping with what those agencies were offering, and there was a comment that it was more of a nice to have than important to have, and does it fall for under a council to do, not so on. So we're just looking at it again now to see whether we continue with it or whether we do it piece by piece. I'm not a big fan of piece by piece because I find that just takes forever. We're just in discussion about what we do next.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Because if not, I will release you. Thank you. That's all the questions. Thank you, Jerry and John. I will move that the committee receive the Globe Theatre Trust Board's annual report 23-24, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Open that for any comments. Another record-breaking year. I think every time Jerry turns up to present with a sidekick or two. Thank you, John, for being with him today. There's a record to be broken and an announcement to be made. Thank you, Jerry, for the strength of the Globe. It's going from strength to strength. It's really exciting to see. I was really impressed, actually, by your willingness to broaden that Summer Sounds programme and again try to see if including other genres in there might give better access to people, to thinking about a progressive approach to ticketing to get more people into the theatre. There's loads of really, really good things going on there. Your comment about the audit programme of still waiting for 2 years of audits to be signed off with the third one now sitting, I think you said it's been an exhaustive process. It sounds like an exhausting process. And I know that the audit requirements for our CCOs, not just the Globe, all of them, are painful and expensive. And it continues to be a concern of elected members about the pressure that that puts on our CCOs at a governance level and at a financial level as well. And a conversation we continue to keep having about how we can structure to try and ease some of those concerns. So noted on that one, and we'll continue to work on it. My other area of concern is about external fundraising. As I said in one of the other CCOs, external fundraising is one of the main reasons why you exist as CCOs. And if we're not successful in that space, it starts to question the model itself. And so I probably will be looking to see that elevated as an area of focus into next year's statement of intent, or the reporting that comes back, that provides support to you, maybe to help identify programs that are capable of receiving external support, and to work with you if there's help needed in that fundraising area, because every dollar that comes from external fundraising doesn't have to come from ratepayers, and I think that's incredibly important as we go into what are looking like tough times. So we will look to pursue that. No other comments, so I will invite you all to vote. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We are now just going to move around in order paper slightly and bring forward number 18, which is the Palmerston North Public Sculpture Trust presentation, since Simon is here already. So we'll get to you next, Simon, and then you can be released. Simon Barnett, chairperson of the Palmerston North Public Sculpture Trust, presenting their annual report to council. Thank you for joining us today, Simon. Over to you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the welcome also. Before I start, maybe the opportunity, take the opportunity, having sat there for a few minutes and hearing those reports, and how encouraged I am, because I think I've sat here before and said how important it is to a thriving city and a great place to really bring up families and to live, and particularly if you've got ambitions, as we do as a city, to hear how thriving the art and culture sector in this town is, because it's a very important aspect of our future. And I was very encouraged by hearing these conversations, so it was a good opportunity.
Thank you.
So I'm sure you've all read my short but compelling report, and so I won't read that, but I just want to, I'm going to pass this around in a moment, because here are two submissions that are shortlisted for the next sculpture, and I thought you could have a look at them. You're not allowed to vote, but hang on a moment, because I want to read. I just want to read a bit first, but thank you. Because this is actually from Mark Hill, and you'll see on one side of the picture that I'm going to circulate it in situ as he imagines it. But this idea that we want to, as part of our founding principles, were to create greater access to sculpture, raise the profile of the arts, and ultimately add to the vitality of our city centre. And that's certainly our ongoing founding principles. But when I read this brief intro from Mark Hill, he said collective vision is the name of the work, and he said collective vision aims to capture a profound moment of collective aspiration and wonder. The stylised nature of the artwork allows the identity of the figures to be interpreted as the viewer wishes, while the collective gaze invites the viewer to share in their experience of looking up with hope towards some common goal and a bright future. And it reminded me of our founding principles, but also about the depth that art can add to an environment. And anyway, I just thought that was a very nice introduction that Mark gave. And so these are two shortlisted proposals for the next installation, which we plan for the corner of opposite the plaza entry. So have a look at those. As I say, you're not invited to vote on these because our process is that we then put these to a panel of local experts and people from the community, and they will advise their views on these two shortlisted options. So, other than to say thank you to your ongoing support, because without the partnership that we enjoy with the Palmerston North City Council, both at officer level and at elected level, we couldn't survive. Those I won't explain which of those sculptures has the appropriate the prices that I'm going to mention. One of them is around 150,000 installed. The other is close to 300,000. Our budgets tend to be, historically, we've always had a partnership of matching 50,000, 55,000 each from public donors and your contribution. But these are actually getting to be very difficult works to install of a quality nature at anything like 100,000, but that's a challenge that we'll have to rise to. So thank you for your ongoing support. We really appreciate it. It makes a big difference. Without the support of the officers, we couldn't achieve what we achieve either. So thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for coming in to present that, and thank you for being clear that people aren't being invited to vote on their favourite. People might be tempted to. I had a couple of questions, and I'll open for questions from others. The Tahitanga sculpture that was hit by a car, Was the replacement of that covered by council insurance or your insurance, or did we just have to find money for it?
On completion of the sculptures, we pass all of them into to the City Council in terms of their ownership, so that's why the sculptures appear on the council balance sheet as an asset. I think I've mentioned an approximate value of those assets of around $4 million at the moment. So those are, it's your problem, and as I understand it, there has been full insurance cover for that work, and it is well underway in terms of its replacement.
Gillian is nodding behind you, say yes, that has been covered by insurance. Thank you. And then my other question about the future installation, not that I'm picking a favourite, but it says in your report that it's going to be on the southeastern corner of Te Maraeohine, opposite the plaza, which to me is the corner where Ngāhuruhuru Rangatira is already there. So can you just speak to why you've chosen a location where there already is an enormous statue?
It's the highest profile and highest pedestrian count in the city, and so it also provides quite a lot of good balance between the other works around the city that's central. So that was our choice there.
Okay.
We believe that concentration is actually a benefit rather than a hindrance. If we were to put one of these sculptures, say at the airport, that might be very appealing, and in fact Mark Hill does, one of those sculptors does have quite a stunning installation in Queenstown Airport that you might recall. But by spreading out, putting that work, say, at the airport, I think would have quite a diminished effect compared to putting it within the central city and with the other works that we've installed, and the existing works, as you've pointed out.
You say more about that, Simon. What do you think the benefit, because we have got quite that collection now in Te Maraeohine and in the central city. What do you think the benefit of that is for the city?
I think it genuinely changes the feeling as you walk around the city. Rather than seeing something in isolation, you actually get a feeling that the city has a lot of these, and that's certainly the feedback that we get from visitors to the town. They say, we never understood Palmy to have this sort of collection of sculptures. And I think that's in part because they see them as they walk around and see them in one hit rather than in other places. Having said that, the Paul Dibble work outside Wild Base is a very good example where there's a very good opportunity for a particular sculpture to go in a different place as well.
Thank you. Question from Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just thought with the value of these installations, to understand the partnership expectation around the 50-50, so at the higher end of the 300,000, is it still a proposal that the city contributes 150 towards, if that was selected?
That's a very good idea, but it's not the way that we're structured. So it becomes our problem to raise that money.
Okay, just for a city ratepayer perspective, I just wanted to understand in a public setting.
No, the arrangement that we have is that the contribution is what started at 50, I think it's about 53 with some inflation adjustment now.
Great, thank you.
And we're very aware that this sculptures could be seen as with an environment requiring clean water and all the other pressures that the city faces, that this could be seen as frippery. And so to come to you and ask for a lot of extra money doesn't seem appropriate. And so we see that if we really believe that one of those sculptures at 300k, say, is what we really should do, then we'll make it our problem to find the money.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Simon, you mentioned, and I know it was mentioned in the Te Manua presentation, obviously Paul Dibble passed earlier this year. This sounds very mercenary, but what impact does that have on the collection of Dibble sculptures that the city owns?
In terms of its value?
Maybe.
Probably not a lot.
And if there was damage to those sculptures, with Paul not around to fix it anymore, what would we do then?
I'm confident that the Dibble Art Company could do those repairs.
Okay.
But it's very difficult to damage one of those works, fortunately.
Which is good news, I think, for all of us. There aren't any further questions, so that's us done. Thank you, Simon. If you want to sit back into the gallery. I'll move that the committee receives the Palmerston North Public Sculpture Trust Annual Report 23-24, presented to the committee today, 25th of September, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Open that for any comments. It's always a pleasure for me to be able to receive that report and to thank the Sculpture Trust for not just the work that they do, and it is not an unsubstantial amount of work, but actually the amount of money that you manage to flow into this for the city. You talked about how those assets on council's books, we get a really good return on investment from the public funding that goes into these sculptures in terms of the asset that comes back to the council, that sits on our balance sheet, that enables us to raise the borrowing that goes into all of the other things that council needs to do. There aren't many assets that council owns that appreciates in value. Most of our assets depreciate, sometimes very rapidly. So thank you to the Sculpture Trust for not just the joy that you bring to our central city, to the opportunity to experience large-scale sculpture works, which most of us wouldn't have apart from the work that you do, but thank you for your commitment to the financial well-being of our city as well. Councillor Harpeter, you have a comment?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I also just wanted to say thank you to Simon and to the Sculpture Trust for all of the work that you do in this area. Many people comment on this and comment on the work that is around the city, and I just want to say thank you for putting and getting the work, finding the sculptures and putting them in our city, because it is hard to find the work, but it was also hard to find the people to put money into the Sculpture Trust. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing it for our city. Thank you for that.
Thank you, absolutely. I'll invite you all to vote on that, please. It's carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you both. So we're going backwards in our agenda, now moving back into that officer report section. So we're now at the, what was number 15, 2024-25 maintenance and renewal plans and budgets for cultural facilities. Bill, you're coming to present that. I'll hand over to you. Bill Carswell, Manager, Property and Resource Recovery.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm here to present a memorandum which essentially summarises the notes that the various buildings making up the cultural facilities, and then talks about the planned renewals and operating expenditure for the ensuing year. It comes out of a request that was made that this be done on an annual basis. That being so, I take the report as read and will answer any questions, if any.
Thank you, Bill. One of the reasons that this report sits on the agenda was to give an opportunity kind of to bring that together with the reporting from the CCOs. Is there any, I don't want to say conflict, but is there any disagreement about this programme of work, or is that well canvassed and agreed with the CCOs involved?
Yeah, I'd have to research that more. I don't know. I would think so.
Okay.
But I'll check that.
Thank you. And from particularly the Regent's report, I noticed there's no mention of their carpet on the planned maintenance project. Do you have any concerns about the Regent carpet that we should be aware of?
Only that it's a high-use area, and we have had some problems with leaks in there in various parts, and that's obviously when a carpet gets sodden, that's a problem. Yeah. But no, I mean, it's a quality carpet that's showing its use.
Clearly. Thank you. Councillor Harpeter, question.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Following up on the question that you asked, how did one get decided over another? So that's the question that how did one priority venue get decided? How did we decide that Globe got 400,000 over the 100,000 for the region?
Well, in my limited knowledge of it, but it's basically a bid, I think, which is taken internally by the officers and in conjunction with the people that look after the facilities themselves.
because we have been hearing for years that Te Manawa had a leaky roof, so I'm a bit astounded. So that's a comment, sorry, I won't say any more.
Is there a comment on Te Manawa's roof?
Yes, that's a question.
No. Yeah, again, I'd have to look back further to give you a conclusive answer to that.
I have heard for years that Te Manawa had a leaky roof, so
Yeah.
they're not here, so thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just, I guess, also inquiring around specifically the Globe, where they've been having a fundraising exercise to do up the entranceway in the foyer. How does that get assessed against every other need a CCO might need, as far as some of the backroom facilities, or the washrooms, or the stage, or the auditorium? How do they assess the next priority, and does that come through council to say, yeah, that is, so we can support their funding applications for validity?
Yeah, well, in terms of council expenditure, I guess we don't apply too much for CCOs, but council-owned buildings,
yes,
purely, it's again coming back to that sort of a bidding process where you prioritise what's the most important.
So with that decision to advance the foyer and the Globes situation as a case study, that would be their board's determination for their internal works, for their priorities. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Just in this conversation, Te Manawa roof reminded me, at 3.1 we have the renewals, and at 3.5 we've got planned maintenance projects. There's budget shown next to renewals, but not next to maintenance. Why is the budget not there for maintenance?
I don't know. I'm picking that it's just because. Well, no, I don't know why it's not.
Maybe it's,
the
is that something
numbers,
we could
why
look
the
at?
numbers aren't there. Yeah.
Can we look at that for the next annual report, that we have budgets in both renewals and maintenance, so that we can, is there any money going to Te Manawa's roof, which is maintenance? That's what we're looking for there, for example. Thank you. Councillor Hancock, you just disappeared. Excellent. We're so efficient. Councillor Dennison, however, has come back in.
I think just on that spreadsheet there, or that little table, I think, well, that captures the current financial year. I just wondered whether or not we might take a view of the second and third year too, just to make sure that we have some things. Not everything happens in this financial year, and we still might have plans for the following. So just to take a 3-year view rather than the annual snapshot. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dennison. That would be really helpful. That's the end of questions. Thank you, Bill, for that. I'll move the recommendation that the committee receive the memorandum 24-25 maintenance renewal plans and budgets for cultural facilities presented to the Culture and Sport Committee on 25th of September, seconded by Councillor Meehan. I think this is a useful report, Bill, and thank you for bringing it. I think what we're expressing is that there is additional information that we would like to see there. If there's anything you want to share with us, Bill, I'm sure that could be circulated offline, but for future reports, I think it would be useful to have budgets across both, and that future look that Councillor Dennison was talking about. Not only good for our oversight of those budgets and how we operate as a good landlord for our CCOs, but useful for the transparency of that for our CCOs as well, that they can see that programme of work coming forward. So that would be my request for the future reports, but thank you for the report this time. Harpeter.
Madam Chair, I think it would be also good to know how the decision was made, because from the CCOs, if they were in the same room and they made that decision together, because knowing that if Te Manawa had decided that their roof wasn't as important as the Globe, and they made that decision and they were all happy about it, that would be great, but we don't know that. And yeah, just understanding that ourselves would be good, because if they're making that priority themselves and they're all happy, then that's great. But we haven't heard that in the past. So that would be good information for us to know that as well.
Thank you, Councillor. I think that's helpful. Thank you, everybody. I'll invite you to vote. carried unanimously. I feel like we're on a roll today. This is boding well. Our next item on the agenda is the conservation plan for Kirch Birch House and property, presented by John Lynch. New one for you, John. Thank you for coming to speak to us today. I'm bringing with you Chris Smith, who has been connected with the management of that property in the past.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, councillors. Bill Carswell is also here. This was actually undertaken by the Property Division, but with Bryce having left recently, we weren't sure who was going to be sitting in the seat, so it got my name put on it. And also Chris Smith, the Manager of Wild Base Recovery. And I suppose I'll start off by saying over a couple of months ago, Acacia Birch came under the Venues and Events umbrella as part of the recent realignment, and it became evident that the conservation plan and the maintenance plan that had been undertaken a couple of years ago had not been circulated and shared with council. So that's the reason why it's coming here, so that you can see that it has been undertaken. It's a pretty full and comprehensive plan. These have also been circulated over recent times with the Acacia Birch Trust Board and the advisory group. And Chris was just telling me a short time ago that the initial feedback has been very positive from the advisory group. The Trust Board are actually meeting tomorrow night, and it's the first time that the Trust Board has met for a few months, for a number of months. So we will be, during this Trust Board meeting, introducing myself and also the operations manager from Venues and Events, and Chris will be doing those introductions as a bit of a part of the transition and the handover, and we'll be updating them on a couple of things operationally and on what I'm about to talk to you about, just so that they are fully aware and part of the engagement and process. So currently what we're doing, and this is just for a little bit of more information around Acacia Birch, I'm undertaking a procurement plan process with procurement in-house here, and that's to engage a consultant to undertake the master plan process for Acacia Birch. Part of the master plan is going to be the conservation and the maintenance plan, and then there will be an operational component to it, as well as the gardens, which makes sure that we're fully understanding of all the areas of significance in the gardens and the notable trees, etc. And we're aiming to have the master plan completed by the end of June and presented to council. And the advisory group and the trust board will be fully engaged and part of that process and a part of my procurement plan process as well. I'll take questions.
Thank you for that, John. We will open up for any questions. In your report, you talk about the purpose of conservation and maintenance plans and that they should be used as a key resource. How will we ensure that that's going to happen, that this doesn't just get put in a drawer and forgotten?
I think there's a twofold part to that. Obviously, I'm very aware of the conservation plan and the maintenance plan, and part of our management going forward is I'm very much having my facilities manager who looks after Arena and the Conference and Function Centre, asset renewals and maintenance, along with the property division, involved with Acacia Birch to ensure that we're on top of and we're planning correctly in line with some of the schedules that have come from these plans, and things aren't forgotten and things aren't maintained or looked after as they should be. On top of that, with it forming part of the master plan, that's going to be very much about getting that master plan in place and then working with the trust board and the advisory group going forward and the operational team to make sure that we are doing the business that we should be doing.
And when did you think that master plan would come back?
I'm just completing the procurement plan at the moment, but the timeline that we have in there is for it to be presented to council in June of 25.
Excellent. And with that master plan, How will that work to balance the sometimes conflicting ideas for the use of the facility? How will that work it through?
Yeah, and that's going to be very much part, there's quite a comprehensive brief that has been put together as part of the procurement plan to go out for a consultant to ensure that we are engaging widely. And I suppose that's where the Trust Board and the Advisory Group are very, very important components and part of that for the completion of the plan.
Thanks. I look forward to seeing how that one comes through. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone. In the 1940s, this was a accommodation for Staff College for the New Zealand Army, and there was a plan to put some little World War II huts there that are being sourced from Wairuru. Do you know if that's still in the process of happening, or are you aware of that?
I'm aware of it from what Chris has told me. I suppose what I would say is while I've heard of that, I suppose that's going to be part of this master plan process and the engagement with the Trust Board and the Advisory Group as to what is actually appropriate or not appropriate. So I wouldn't want to comment.
No, that's great. Just want to make sure you're aware. Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions, I think. So thank you, Chris, John, Bill. You can step back. I will move the recommendation that we receive the memorandum titled Conservation Plan for Cartchbirch House and Property, presented to the Transport Committee 25 September, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Open for any comments on that. We've been waiting for this report for quite a long time about having the conservation plan so that it can then go forward to inform the master plan. I'm aware, and Councillor Arnott raised in his questions, that there are a lot of aspirations for the use of this facility. Cartchbirch holds lots of our stories. You know, it's been so many things to so many people over the years, and there are aspirations from lots of different parts of our community to see those stories made more physically evident in that space, beyond the excellent work in the Coach House Museum. And I think that's why it's important that we get this planning right, so that we have a framework that we can assess those requests, assess how that aligns with the stories that we want to tell as a community and get that right. There are a number of interests at play here, and it's a collective responsibility, I suppose. So great to see that we've done this first step in getting the conservation plan sorted, and that will feed into the master plan, and that will help us to make some good quality decisions that take our community and communities of interest along with us in that process. So thank you for presenting the report. Thank you for the work that it reflects. I will ask you to vote. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Yes, moving along. Gillian's moving. We are running like a well-oiled machine today, people. Well done. We are moving to the Statements of Expectation for Cultural Council-Controlled Organisations 25 to 28, presented by Gillian Tasker, Community Development Advisor, Arts. Over to you, Gillian.
E nā kai konehira, tēnā koutou, nā ui e taunei, tēnā koutou, ko Gillian Tasker aho, he kai tohu tohu, tau tawawhai, hapore nā toi. Yes, greetings everyone. I'm Gillian Tasker, Community Development Advisor for the Arts. I'm happy to take this report as read and answer any questions.
Goodness, you're the speedy one today. Thank you, Gillian. Just to ask what feedback, if any, or what engagement with any with the CCOs we've had on the Statement of Expectation so far.
Yes, so following some consultation with the Mayor, Chair and Deputy Chair of this committee, we also took the draft Statements of Expectation to a meeting with the chairs and managers and chief executives of our CCOs. They were all comfortable with the draft letters as presented.
And Gillian, in my questions today, you'll have detected the theme of being concerned about our external fundraising. Do you feel that that's sufficiently reflected in the Statements of Expectation so far? Is that something we could look to strengthen?
We could include that as another expectation. I was also thinking that potentially we could connect our CCOs with our council fundraisers as well.
But you don't need anything from in committee in order to enable you to do that?
No, we can actually, ensure that that goes ahead.
That's great. Any other questions? Being none, well done, Gillian. You're off the hook with that one. So I will move that we approve the statements of expectation for Te Manua, the Regent and the Globe, seconded by Councillor Meehan. We'll take all three of those together. Open for any comments? There being none, I'll invite you to, I feel like an auctioneer today. There being none, I'll invite you to vote. Sold. Yeah. Unanimously. You all get a statement of expectation. Which brings us to the committee work schedule at 243 in the papers. Any comments on that now? No comments. So I'll move the Culture and Sport Committee receive the work schedule dated September 24, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Any questions, observations, humorous asides? Being none, I'll invite you to vote. Carried unanimously, which brings us to the end of our meeting. So I will close us with karakia. Kia puta ki te whaio, ki te au marama. Whakamoa ki a tīna. Homie, huie, tai ki e. Kia ora.